Well, in this episode, Ed's going to be pouring resin.
That's one thing I can guarantee you Ed's not going to be doing.
Yep, on my desk.
I brought enough gloves and resin.
So MPG 2016 will be at the same hotel. We work with them. We'll be sending out an email tomorrow about it. They were fantastic. They were very apologetic for everything that went out. And it looks like we're going to be setting it up, and we're looking at the third weekend in April of next year. So we're going back to that's our normal weekend. We had to pump it up this year because of Easter.
And Terry, I have your blanks and your mug from the MPG.
So yes, Terry, we have your blanks and your mug.
The MPG was always a topic of conversation in our prelude. Now it's over. We don't have anything to say.
So SK Perkins says, I have trouble with wrapping the label paper. Oftentimes it unsticks at the seam. I'm looking for a solution to that problem. Any special glue? We're going to cover that tonight.
We will make sure by the end of this that you have it all down pat.
I've had a couple of people email me with questions about the casting and the labels and so forth. Hopefully, by the time you're done here, you will know everything you need to know. But please understand that John and Mark have done this a million times. You haven't maybe done it at all. So feel free to ask questions. Ask whatever's going on. Okay, somebody's got something. Ask questions whenever you have an issue, and if we're going to touch that subject later, he certainly can tell you that he's going to touch on that subject down the road. But we don't know what you don't know, and it's much easier if you're telling us around as we go along what you'd like us to be clearer on. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a very long way is this is supposed to be interactive, and we hoped that getting into the YouTube would make it more interactive. And I think it has. I think we get more information from you and more things that we can approach. But please feel free. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Well, and the nice thing is we're going to have this will be on the YouTube channel.
Move into the picture.
No, it's fine.
No, let's move into the picture.
If you're going to talk, you got to be on camera.
There.
I will.
Thank you.
Rule.
Thank you.
So this will be on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to get all that. There's also YouTube I've got on the casting and all the label prep that you'll be able to get to, and there's also the one that you have on some of your channels.
Mm-hmm.
So lots and lots of resources out there already, and you may ask, why are we doing the same topic? Because we've had a lot of requests for it. When we're finished with this presentation, it will be recorded on YouTube, and it will be available for you at some point in time, maybe not immediately, but it will be available shortly. So that's kind of where we're headed with this Thursday gatherings. We're hoping that we can start to put together a library that will be available for you and available at your discretion as to when you want to watch it. It's the Zoom could have been if I was more technically astute, but it never quite worked out. So this is what the guys have come up with that should solve that problem. And I appreciate them covering the bases for me. So,
well, we also took a lot of feedback from questions that people have had. So I know that people have been asking us questions on a lot of this stuff. We've been answering it. You know, we just came off the MPG where I knew that this was a hot topic also. So even if you've seen the other ones, I think this one's going to be a little bit different, and I'm really excited about doing this one.
And we hope it'll be from A to Z. The previous ones have touched on various different topics. We hope that this will give you from I have nothing to I have a tubed blank that's ready for me to turn. And with any luck at all, I believe it probably will work out that way. So,
and we're gonna cover two topics tonight, right? Yeah. We're gonna cover that, and then John, you're gonna cover
Let me show them how to prep cards for
cardistries. Yeah.
And real quick, Lee, I use Silmar 41 for the feather casting. So yeah, by the time this is done, there's no reason why anyone watching this won't be able to print their own decal, labels, apply them to the tubes, and successfully cast them.
So that's our goal. We hope that you enjoy the presentation. But again, we hope more than anything else that you participate in the presentation. We can give you much better information if we know what it is that we've missed. Understand that among the three of us, I don't think any of us have been doing this for less than 20 years. So you kind of forget the days that you didn't know how to start. And therefore, when somebody asks a question you may consider very rudimentary, that's true. It is rudimentary, and that's why we forget completely about it. We've done it a million times. So
well, and with that, we've messed them up a million
That's
times,
right.
so we know as well what works and what doesn't work.
And we've kind of disposed of the things that don't work. You know, there's something about trying to make sure that the next one comes out better, and you forget the ones that didn't work and try to put them back into history and never again to be seen. But
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with 100%.
good.
So if you got any more questions, keep rolling them at the side, and we'll cover everything that we can now before we start in about 8 minutes.
Thing I can tell you about this week, the question that I have had most often pertains to the Diplomat and the Diamond Knurl ballpoint pens. It seems that there is a good deal of confusion about what a body twist pen needs to do. And one of the things that people tend to try to do is to take the tube, the brass tube, before they've done anything with it, and put it over the top of their mechanism, the rest of the pen. I had one. There it is. They try to put this over, without the back end on it, over the tube, and they find that it's very loose at this section right here. And undoubtedly, well, some will then send me a note telling me that it can't possibly be right because it's very loose. Understand that, and I understand, you have been probably making the Gatsby or making a click pen or making a finial twist. In all those cases, the distance that you're dealing with here is critical, and therefore the length of your tube is critical. In the case of a body twist, it is not critical. What you need is that this piece, this top piece that you made, has to have this top finial part in it that holds the clip on. Inside there's a tube that is the same diameter or a little bit larger diameter than your transmission. So when you put this together, that then goes over the top of this, and that's what holds everything straight. So when you're trying to put this all back together and push it in like that, it has to be slightly loose at this junction because it has to twist. That's what a body twist does. I get this question very frequently, and always it's from people who have not tried to put the thing together, nor have they paid attention to the instructions. I can sympathize with that. I never did either. But by the same token, if you don't read the instructions, trust me when I tell you that this will work. When you get on the phone and argue with me for 5 minutes, and then go back and try it and find out, well, lo and behold, he was right. So, just basically, it is the way that it's designed, and this will hold everything straight. And when you're all finished, you have a body twist. When you twist the body, it extends the refill, and when you twist it the other direction, it retracts the refill. So that's the way it's supposed to work.
Can I comment real quick?
Sure.
Another thing is, if you notice that it's not fitting tight at the seam here, what you may want to do is take this apart and use a ream on the inside of your brass tube, because if you think about it, this is milled flat. This edge right here might not be with the coating a perfect 90. So what you may need to do is put a ream in here just to cut back that tape, to add a slight taper to your tube so that it fits a little more flush. And if it's wiggling, then you may have flanged your tube out more and made it a little large, or if you had to sand or scrape, you may have overdone it to where you get a slight wiggle.
So now can I have a shot?
Now your
Certainly.
turn.
Your turn.
I will tell you, I've made a bunch of these or a ton of these things. And the couple things that I know that we do this when we do learn to turn with kids.
Okay.
The biggest problem that I see is two things. Is this part on the top, if there is glue or something in there, that's what's going to cause this to cramp in. And when you go to actually do the twist, it's never going to twist properly because it gets too tight.
Yep.
And I think one of the biggest things, and I actually had to, talk to someone who was prepping the blank. They took a rat file and they were just scraping it away, which then made it too loose.
Too loose. Yep.
I would always prefer that if you're having a challenge with this, is take the other side of a rat file, bend it a little bit, and pick the glue off first.
Mm-hmm.
Pick all the big chunks of glue off before you just go in with a rat file and start to sand it down. That rat file, if you elongate that hole, you're going to mess that thing up. So if you pick the glue out of it, that's 90% of the problem of it not turning properly.
Okay. And that's half of the glue story.
Yeah.
The other half of the glue story is on this end.
Yes.
And if you have glue on this end and you put this all together, it gets too tight at that junction.
Yep.
And therefore it won't turn. Now, how do you know that's your problem? One of the nice things about this pen without the part that you did, it's completely independent and it works fine. So you can do this without any of your parts on it. If it works, the problem is somewhere in this portion. If it doesn't work, the problem is in here. Additionally, if you want to, you can change the amount that the refill shows when you have this apart. It isn't advised, but you can shorten the transmission slightly, or you can, because you don't have to get into this end of the pen also comes off. The nib itself comes off, and that's how you can put your refill in. So you can put a slight space in there between your transmission and the spacer, and then glue that down. Once you've done that, you're going to have this amount of that refill showing all the time. So you can adjust the amount that will show. But do be aware that we don't recommend that. This is the amount that it should show. There is nothing you can do to screw that up. So essentially, when you do it the first time, you look at it and say, this is all good. If it's way off or it seems like it's way off, try a different refill. It isn't unheard of that a refill will be slightly too long or slightly too short. Now, they do them by the millions and they don't make many mistakes. So please don't tell the world that I said that they can be wrong.
Another thing is the spring. I always see a problem, not always, but I've seen problems with the spring.
Yep.
And if I want to see it really snap back in, I will actually just take my
Stretch
fingers
a
and
little.
pull it a little bit, or make sure that when I put it together that I didn't have the refill jump the spring.
Or flip it.
Mhm.
Jump the spring or be on the outside. And when you're actually going to turn it, you find it. So I want to grab a couple quick questions here before we start. It says, Mr. Underhill, which I really respect that they're going that formal with you. And you're talking about the MPG and water stencils.
Yeah.
You read it? Go ahead.
So I did read it. I would suggest if you're going to use water slide decals and you're going to put a finish over it, I don't think I would use lacquer. I'm afraid the lacquer is going to affect the actual print in your decal. I think the solvents and everything are going to counteract each other. So I would say stick with the glue. If you want to put 1 or 2 coats of glue on, level it out, then you can switch to lacquer. But I think the medium CA is going to be your best bet without damaging the print on your decals. And I seen also someone asking about the grand prize. I believe that was Dale Kern.
Yep.
Dale Kern won the grand prize lathe. And the other question was about using Alumilite Clear Slow. And I think that is the right choice if you're first starting out because it's going to give you the longest working time and allow you to just get your process down. And then once you have your process ironed out and you feel confident in what you're doing, then you can switch to the clear, which is a little shorter curing time and working time. But start with the Clear Slow.
So then the nice thing too, back to Dale Kern, I just want to point this out. At the MPG, Easywood then also provided 4 tools, and we had 4 individual recipients win those. We got the casting from Curtis. Curtis gave us some stabilizing solution. So we had about 5
gift certificate.
Yeah, we had about five or 6 big prizes that we gave out at the event. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I see Kim has joined us from sunny Florida.
Love it when they rub it in.
Yeah. Although we were quite warm today.
Yes, it was a decent day.
It started out in the mid 50s when I left my house, and I think by the time we got up here, it was a little warmer. Mark,
Well,
Mark, you're cold,
can I just say, having had a birthday last week, I wish I was still in the mid 50s.
Yeah.
Now that I hit 60, I'm on that warm front. When you see me hit 70 and 80 and 90, that will be when it's just too hot for me.
I will stop hanging out with you long before that.
Yeah,
Well, no one,
you won't be interesting anymore.
Yeah.
I can
Right.
tell you that.
and no one has ever accused me of being hot. So, all right. So I think we're ready to start. I'm going to drift out, Ed, just so you can stand and
Sounds
talk.
good. Appreciate it. No problem. So yes, oh boy, I lost them both.
Giving you the stage.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll stay sitting down though, because if I stand up, you won't see me anymore. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. It's interesting. We're at almost 100 people. We appreciate that very much. I think as you're going to find that this is a worthwhile session. We are talking about bringing in more of the training in these sessions. As I said before, but it was early. We have done the topic before, but we've done the topic before in bits and pieces. And we have had a lot of requests for this particular topic where we're talking about label casting. And there are also a number of people who have asked about John's cardistry, and he has agreed to show a lot of the how the cardistry works. So you're going to see a lot of things that are repeats of other things we've done in the past. But we hope what we're going to achieve here tonight is that Mark is going to talk about how to size and how to start out with the image and make that image an image that is of value to you for casting. And then from that point forward, John will take over on the here's how you put it on the tube, although that might be Mark too. And here's how you do the casting of it and so forth. So what we hope is that when we're all finished here, you will be able to actually start from not knowing anything about it to being able to create your first blank. Again, many people were not here when we said this before. Please ask questions. We've all been doing this a very long time. And as a result of that, we frequently don't think about the things that are automatic to us. So when you get to a step and you say, well, he went from A to F and I missed B, C, D, and E, make it clear to us that you missed that there's something that was in there that we did not make clear. And we will certainly make every attempt to do that. What we're hoping to do here is put together a YouTube that will be a reference material for you. So if we have all the steps and we have them in proper order, and everybody gets a chance to input their questions, we should end up with a pretty valid and useful piece of video. So that's our goal. And again, we thank you for joining us. I will tell you, well, you know, it's over 100 people watching. That's very flattering, and we appreciate it. But then John and Mark are both pretty good. So you should come out of this knowing quite a bit about what you're doing. So with that in mind, I will turn it over to Mark, and he will get us going in how to size and how to essentially start out your label cast.
Thanks, Ed.
Mark,
Thanks, Ed.
I'll get out of the way. Ha, ha, ha.
No problem. So I know that this is going to be, if this is the first time you're sitting and you're going to be watching this, there may be a couple of things that you want to ask questions on. So I am going to take logical breaks at any given point, and I am going to be looking for the chat. So if you have questions, as Ed says, please put it up in the chat. I am going to do a real quick couple things on PowerPoint that I want to kind of emphasize and talk to you about, just so you get an idea of everything that we're going to go through. So with that, let me jump over to
3, I think it is.
the PowerPoint slide. And this is, as I pointed out, this is going to be an advanced pen making class, and we're going to call it label casting. Give you an idea of the background. John and I, we've also been involved with the AAW, and in the article on the left, it's an article that we co-authored, and it is on casting. So if you wanted a copy of that magazine, you can get it. Give you a little bit of inspiration. These are things that you can cast. This is a walking medallion. This is a non-cast. This is a crushed penny from Disney World that I cast and made it a whole steampunk. So it just gives you some ideas of what you're going to cast and what you can do. But a real quick thing that I want to point out is safety, especially when you get into casting. So I know when you're doing your turning, and we talk a little bit about safety, we're always talking about making sure that you've got your eye protection on and you're doing everything safely. This is the same thing. We are going to be talking about using chemicals. Chemicals that we're going to be using are very safe to be using, but we do want to make sure that there are some precautions. Make sure that you are wearing eye protection, that John will go into wearing gloves, and a whole bunch of other things that we have going on down there. And to give you a couple ideas of what you can cast, at some point you can cast stamps, stickers, carbon fiber, snake skins, sheet music, a lot of things that we can be casting. And if you're new to casting, I just want to kind of go over the spectrum with you before we jump heavily into the clear casting and labels. If you've never done any casting and you want to go through this is at least the way I've done it. I think, John, you've done it the same way. We started out doing some simple color casting where we're mixing some colors up. Come on in.
But when we started, nobody was really clear casting, right?
Right.
It was colored and embedded. So color casting is great to start with when you're trying to iron out your colors and your pouring times. Clear casting is actually the easiest, but I just wanted to add, the biggest difference is color casting, all the emphasis goes into pouring the resin. Clear casting, all the emphasis goes into creating the blank, and then the resin is the easy part. You just dump it over the top. So there's very little resin work. It's more prep work leading up to the casting.
Fair enough. So I've kind of touched on this. Safety is important. So one thing, though, I do want to make sure that I'm going to cover, and I want to be very, very clear on this one, is when you talk about doing label casting, there's a lot of questions out there about copyright. And copyright is really important. I just want to stress this. You can't just right-click on an image, pull it down, cast it on a label, and think that you could print it. You can't go out and print 1,000 copies of the Chicago Bulls logo. I don't know that you would, or the Chicago White Sox logo, which I'm sure that you won't. But, you know, just be cognizant or aware of the fact that now we're getting into not a gray area. It's a pretty black and white area of copyright. So anything that I cast, I always make sure that I have access to the rights on it. I want to cover all that stuff. If you're doing any kind of the copyright stuff, make sure you're aware of it. There's a whole bunch of websites out there, especially Google has one where you can actually go on Google and get imagery. So I don't want to dwell on it, but I want to make sure that everybody understands copyright laws, and copyright is important. Sorry, we can ask Mark. Okay. Any questions, Dean, on anything?
No.
Perfect.
I see Dean shaking his head no.
All right, so this is what we're going to talk about. So I got the next slide up here that we're looking at. I'm going to go over it, and I'm going to do this pretty in depth. So I'm going to take my time doing this one. I'm going to talk about sizing the image. John and I are going to talk a little bit about how we hide the seams, how we get creative with our borders, how we come up with the bleed and synthesize it by using a Sharpie. And then we're going to talk a little bit about using Microsoft Word. So you can see on the pictures on the side, I've got the one on top, which is just a car. It's borderless. Then the eye chart, I've got a border on it. And then the one on bottom, it's got a border on that. And it's got some words on there. So by the end of the day, probably in the next half hour, you're going to be able to do all this and prep it all, and it'll all be ready to go.
Real quick, somebody asked, are they okay to use stickers that they bought?
So the stickers that you bought, that's an excellent question. That's one of the ones that are in a gray area. Typically, when you buy the sticker, if you're buying it, you're using it to stick on something. And I'll tell you this, I can tell you for sure, if you're giving it away as a gift or something like that, There's absolutely no problem with it. When you're actually going to sell it, it's a little bit gray. And I always, if you come into my booth, you'll see that I don't ever go anywhere near any of that stuff.
And yeah, like you said, it's different if it's a gift as opposed to trying to sell it. One of the big things that the copyright owners have is the fact of what kind of representation is that put on their product. If it's a negative impact on them, then you're going to get a cease and desist letter.
Yep, and Jim points it out perfectly. Yes, copyright laws only apply when you're selling the product, which is right. If you're doing it and you're giving it as a gift or things like that, you've got a little bit more leniency on that one. So, but I just wanted to make sure that I pointed out copyright and we know what we were talking about. So you can see here, I've got a picture up of some of the things that we'll be able to do. So I love doing this. And let's talk about component sets and the ones that we're going to use. The cool thing about doing this is not only does the image play, but the component set that is going to play into it. Like this one, there's the glare. That's the dog. And if you've got, as we pointed out, if you've got someone who's got a dog and you wanted to do an image, this is my daughter's dogs on the blank. And by the end of the night, you'll know how to be able to do that one. And those are my daughter's dogs. Another set, one of my favorite sets to work with, is the gear shift one. And there's a picture of a car that I have access to that image. And I own that image. So I've done that one. And then I have a friend. Notice I say a friend because I don't have a lot of them. That means I'm singular. That asked me to do one for himself. And it was a police officer up in Wisconsin. And so I did a nice little, did the bolt action on this one. And I did a nice little logo on there for him. So other things that you can take a look at. This one is the hockey set. So you can imagine, just giving you some ideas. If your son is into hockey and you've got a picture of him in his hockey uniform, boy, that makes a great gift. This one's the gear shift. We've talked about that one. We've talked about the dog one. There's also a cat one. So if you explore the Exotic Blanks website, you'll see a ton of different ways to incorporate your component set. Exactly what we're doing when we're doing the rest of it. So on this one today, I want to explore doing the car and the gear shift. So did I pull up the gear shift? Yep. So the first thing that we're going to need to do when we're doing this is we're going to open up the package and we're going to pull the tube out. This tube sets our canvas. So we need to know a couple things about the tube, right? We need to know the the diameter of the tube. And we also need to know the length of the tube. And this is always a more fun demo if I was doing it live, where I'll ask people, well, if I knew that this was 27/64 as the tube, what's the circumference? And how many people can do 27/64, convert it into pi, do the circumference and all that other stuff? There's a much easier way of calculating the width, the diameter of that tube or the circumference of that tube. And here's what I do. I will simply take the tube. I'll take a piece of blue painter's tape. I'll start it here on the piece. I'm going to put it at a little bit of an angle so that when I wrap it around, and you see here that I've got it offset and overlapped. Then I'm simply going to take another pen and I'm going to draw a line across both of them. Can you see that? It's across both. So now when I want the circumference, I'm simply going to just take this off. I've got it down there. And now I can take my ruler. And this ruler is kind of nice because I've got a ruler here that if I look at it real close, we'll try to get it to focus in. Yep. It's all the way down to 30 seconds on this end. So I can see that I can measure everything down here in 30 seconds. So if I take this piece of tape and I measure this out, I'll see that the circumference is, go ahead. Is there a question?
No, I was gonna say just do it right here.
You can't,
There
can't
you
see
go.
it that way.
Yeah, there you go.
It's 1 and 4/32 long. So now you're going to say, well, Mark, there's got to be a little bit of math involved there, right? So let's talk about that. And let's try to figure out exactly how we're going to be able to get that and work with that. So we're going to go to the computer. I'm going to pull up a calculator. And so I want to get that 1 and 4/32 into dots per inch, because my image of ultimately is going to be in dots per inch, right? So here's what we're going to do. I find, let me jump to me. I find that when I'm doing this, when I'm doing it in a normal printer and going and printing anything out, 300 dots per inch is really the maximum that most home printers can use. So if you're going to ask me questions on printers, I can answer them. But I'll tell you this. I use inkjet. I know that you can use laser, but I use inkjet. I find that inkjet is just it's a very common printer to be able to use. Most desktop printers are going to be, most desktop printers that you hook to your computer are going to be fine with it. And I like, if you want to know, I like the HP series. So I know that I've got an HP color printer at home. And I always print it in 300 dots per inch. So do I have any questions on there?
Dean says use metric.
Someone says that they use an EcoTank and they really like it. That sounds great.
Yeah.
So what do I need to do? Well, I'm doing 3/32, or sorry. I know someone commented about, going down to 1/8. That's fine. But I want to do this. I want to do the math in 30 seconds, just in case you get an odd fraction, right? In case you got 29/32 or something like that. I do know that an eighth is that it works out to be the exact thing of an eighth. So what I want to do is, I said it was 4/32. So if I take 4 divided by 32, so it's 0.125, and I said it was an inch in that, so I'm going to say plus 1. So I know that I've got it 1.25, right? So are we good on that one? Everybody agrees that the image the circumference of my image is about 1.25. Yeah, 1.125. Now I want to make that in dots per inch. So I'm going to multiply that by 300, because we said that that's what I want to print in. So 337, I might put a little bit of a buffer in there. So I might make it, I usually add 25 points on that one. So I would make it 352, somewhere in that area, right? That's my circumference around the image. Now the easy part is doing the length. So if I come back here and I do the length, I simply am going to take my tube and I'm going to put it here. And I know that once again, I'm at the 24. So that's another eighth, but that's 8/32. So this is 2 and 8/32, the tube, right? So if I take this and I go back to the screen, it's 8/32. So I'm going to take 8 divided by 32, 0.25. I'm going to go plus 2 on it. So that's 2.25. I'm going to multiply it. Oh, thank you, Dean. I'm going to multiply that by 300. And I got 675. And so let's say that I put on a little bit of a buffer on that. I might make it 700. So my image that I want to produce is going to be 700 in one dimension by 352 in the other dimension. So I see Dean's got it already up there. Anybody have any questions? I'm going to take a real quick pause to let everybody catch up. That's the hardest thing to do. That is the hardest thing to do with label casting, is figuring out the dimension of your tube, how you're going to do it, and everything else. All right. Is there a question? All right. So now let's get into actually doing some fun. And let's have some fun, and let's actually create the image.
Do you find do you notice a difference in your dots per inch between 300 and 600 when you print on a printer?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. And I know I can tell you this. I don't want to get weird about it. I know that I've got a commercial printing background. I come from the world of commercial printing. Most high-end catalogs and stuff like that are all printed in 300 dots per inch. I know that the consumer market with printers is trying to take you up to 600, but you'll see, and we'll talk about it, is even when we get to some scaling and stuff like that, even if we're going to get any kind of weird stretching, when you put it on a pen blank, you cannot see it. It's a negligible difference. You can tell the difference. The one thing, though, that I do want to point out is you can tell the difference on a computer. It's 72 dots per inch. And so if you look at your screen, it'll be in 72 dots per inch. And a lot of software like Photoshop and stuff like that is going to default to 72 dots per inch. And so that's where it does become a little bit of a problem.
Newspapers used to be 60. So
Yeah.
that's a reference for them.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So we're ready to have some fun. So the first thing that I bring up is I'm going to do mine. I'm going to use Photoshop. And I know there's a lot of questions about it. I use this version of Photoshop. It's a pretty basic version. You can get it from Adobe for, I think if you get it on sale, which it's always on sale, it's $79.95. And I know that, I'll look for questions on here. There is other software out there. See, they're asking me if I want to get a new bundle already. There's GIMP, I know that's out there. I know that there's other things out there. The reason I like Photoshop is there's a lot of tutorials on YouTube on it. So if you want to start playing around with Photoshop, there's a ton of tutorials on YouTube on Photoshop. There's a ton of books out there on YouTube. There's a lot of tutorials on it on Photoshop. So I prefer using Photoshop. All right, so let's go. Let's say that I've taken a nice picture of my car, or of the car that I want to do, and we're going to open it. So I'm going to say File, Open. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go here, and I've got this picture of this old car. And this is the one that's on the pen. Notice if I come up here and I look at the image and I go resize image size, this picture is really big. If it was done at 72 dots per inch, this image is 15 inches by almost 10 inches, right? Yeah, it is Photoshop. It is Photoshop Elements. So this image is a rather big image because I took it off a digital camera. And so that's the image that I have in the digital camera. So you'll see here now, all we need to do is come into here. We're going to make it 300. And what did I say I wanted my width to be? I wanted it to be 700. And I wanted to do my height as 352. Now, the biggest question that I get here is, notice here that on this constrained proportions, I have that unclicked. If I kept that clicked, the minute I would change the width, it would automatically change the height, and it's trying to keep everything proportional for me. So notice here, I'm not keeping it in proportion. I'm going to let it skew. But notice when I look at the image after I say okay, the image just got a little bit longer, but you're not going to notice that when I put it on a pen. So the image worked perfectly fine when I'm going to put this thing on a pen. Yes, sir.
One thing I want to add is when you're taking your pictures and you want to cast on a label like this, leave plenty of background. That way it allows you to eliminate background without eliminating something you want in the picture. So I always advocate if someone says, hey, will you label cast this? I always say, yes, but don't get a close-up shot. You can crop that to the size you need it later to fit the tube, but you don't, if you have plenty of background, you don't have to worry about something being stretched or skewed or.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
always leave
important
extra
too,
background.
because remember that we added a little bit of room on the top and the bottom. Sorry, on the top, if you will, so that when I roll this around the brass tube, I'm going to get a little bit of an overlap.
Mhm.
So on this image, when I'm looking at it, I'm going to point this out really, really quick, is I am going to, when I put this on the tube, I'm going to put this part on first so that when I roll this on here, the whole car will show. If I put this part on bottom on first and that this part rolls over, remember I've got like 1/8 of an inch on the overlap, you would see the trees came up and they would actually be on the tire. And so that's why I like to do it the way that I'm doing it. I'm simply going to take this image and I'm going to roll it up here. The nice thing about doing Photoshop elements is you don't need to be a Photoshop genius to do anything. Notice if I come up here and I just click on this and I say Smart Fix and I click on it, it's changed the colors for me. Or I say Auto. Kind of weird that I'd say Auto on a car picture, but I said Auto on a car picture. If I wanted to change the lighting on here, and you can see here, I don't know if it was noticeable. This is the image, but if I wanted to lighten the image up, could you see how the image lit up a little bit? Or I like it dark, but I can auto level it. If I like that color on there, maybe I wanted to enhance the red on there, I can do all that. So notice with 2 quick clicks, I took this image and I made it much brighter and I got a lot more color into it. And so you can play with all the different things that are sitting down here. You can sharpen the image if you'd like. I don't do it because it starts to make it look like a 1960s item where they've got some of that stuff. But if you want to play with the color balance, you can tone colors on there, things like that. It doesn't take a lot to do it. I'll typically just come in, I'll say Smart Fix on here. I'll pick out 1 or 2 that I like when I'm doing the smart fixing on here. Or I'll say Auto, and it will have done all the color adjustments for me. I'm looking if anybody has any questions on the side, but now I've done. I've taken that image, and let's just recap what I did. I took the image, I brought it into Photoshop, I changed the image size, I've done very, very fundamental color correction on it. And now if I come up here and I say File, Save As, I will put it on here and I'll call it Old Car Ready for Gear Shift. I save it always as a JPEG. And then I will come in and I will come in here. I'll say Save. I normally default the image resolution to high. It's not going to make a big difference to me because I want to print at the highest resolution that I can. I come in here and I say, okay. And now that I'm done. I've now taken that image. I've done all my color correcting and I'm ready to go. But now let's play around with something else. Let's say that I wanted to do let's say I want to do this same picture, but as John pointed out, I wanted to do a border on here, right? So I can come in here and I can say File, New, Blank File, and I'm going to say Car with Border. And I'm going to go back to that same 700 width. And I want to do the height is 352. My resolution I want to do is 300. And I'm going to say, okay. So now notice I got a clean palette, right? So I can come over here, if I go into expert mode, and I want to select this. Let's do something first. I want to pick out a background color here of black. So now I'm going to come into here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to select this whole area. Then I'm going to say Image. Oh, sorry. I'm going to say select this whole area. Image. Where's Phil? I was doing this just this morning.
You know that
You
feeling.
can use the. You can't see it. I can't make it out. Was there a paint fill? Yeah, the biggest problem with this program under expert, there's so much you can do. You got to hunt for what you're
Yeah,
looking for.
let's try to do it under. There we go. So I right click on it and I say fill. And I want to do it with my foreground color, which is the black. Say, okay, now I've got a black image, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to say edit, copy. So I've got this image over there that I've copied. I'm going to come into here. I'm going to say edit, paste. The image is there. So now I am going to take on my selection tool. And I'm going to say, okay. So now what did I do? I've now given myself, notice here when I go to wrap it, I've got some black on the side, so I'm going to get some overlap. And this is kind of fun. Now I can take this, I can click on the text box. I can make it 10 point. Let's say that I like red to match the color of the car. And I'm going to come into here. Oops. My 1957 Chevy. Click on it. Now I've got another image, right? I can now wrap this up and put it on my blank. I'd probably bump this up just a hair, right? So that when I put this on, I'll start with it over here. And then when I overlap it, I'll have the black on the black. Make sense? So let's see. If you're printing out an inkjet printer, you should set your file to CMYK. You'll get more colors. Excellent point. I have absolutely no problem with that one, that you'd want to print it in CMYK. Hi, I'm glad to be able to join this session. And, oh, sorry. Thank you. So does this make, if you guys have any questions, now's a good time to ask me the questions on it. But you can see here, all that I did was I took the image and that I'm able to print it out and I'm able to put it on the label. I resized the label. I've played around with color correction. I've done everything that I think you need to know for doing a very simple label.
You might want to point out, if you're new to casting, this is a very good way to hide your seam with the black on both ends.
We're going to do that. Yep. So Ed points out a very good point. Having doing it this way, it's a great way of hiding the seam. And I know John is just itching because he's got yet something else that is always in his toolbox. And it's something I learned right away, is how to do that. An overlap is needed, yes. But by how much? I usually overlap mine by no more than about 1/8 of an inch. And usually right in that
plus or minus a 30-second in there.
Yeah, plus
usually,
or minus a 30-second.
Usually at least and no less than 1/8.
Right.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers your question on it. So now I'm going to do the one that's a little bit more taboo, but I know people are going to ask about it. So let's get that one. And then after that, I'm going to.
Dean wants to get in.
I'm sorry?
Dean wants to get in.
Yes, Dean.
You need to resize the image after adding the text.
Do you need to resize the image after adding the text? You don't have to, Myra. In this case, I did to just give me a little bit of room to get my text in. But once the image is placed in there, you're fine.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to come back here and I'm going to go to the Exotic Blanks logo. And I'm gonna just show you how I would do this and put this on something like a pen. And notice if I come over to here and I right click on it, I can save the image as. But this is such a weird thing about using Google Chrome. Notice that the file extension that I have here is this WEBP file, which is something that's completely unusable for Photoshop.
Yeah, it won't open up.
So here's what I do. I've got, and this comes in, this sniping tool is free. So I'm going to just come here. I'm going to say visit.
Like print screen, right?
Yep. So you can do print screen, but this is a tool that every Windows PC has, and I don't know that most people know it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I come up here and I say this is my sniping tool or snipping tool, sorry. I want to get it right where I want it. Snipping tool. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say new. Notice it blacks out most of my screen. And now I'm just going to come into here. Now I've got that image over here, right? So now I can come in and I can say save it, or I can copy it. And then if I go back into Photoshop and I say file, new, image from clipboard, there's my image. And now if I wanted to adjust it to fit the size of a Wall Street or what would I put it on, Ed? What would be my favorite one?
Oh, diamond knurl.
A diamond knurl.
Definitely the diamond knurl.
So if I want to size it up for a diamond knurl, I would just go through the exact same process that I just did. I would possibly put this on a blank black one and then put my border on there and wrap it around. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to grab an image off the web if you can use the image and you have the rights to using the image. All I'll tell you is the way to do it is make sure that you look into you go into your Windows. This is all done on Windows. Go into Windows and find the snipping tool, and you snip it the way I did it, and you'd be able to bring it in.
Mark, is there a preferred resolution to take photos in for optimal results while resizing?
If the question is off my camera, I let my camera go at the highest level that it can. So on my camera, that's why you saw when it came in, it would have been 15 inches. I'm letting my camera take the most resolution because this way, if Photoshop is going to do it and it's going to have to bring the image down and do the size, it's going to have enough data of the pixels on either side of it to blend it. And I don't want to get real technical, but let's say that, especially let's say on this image here, where I'm looking at it, notice where it goes into the orange and there's some gray and there's some white there. If I let Photoshop have 300 dots per inch on either side of it, it can calculate that out and give me that nice, clean, sharp edge. But if I brought in an image that's 72 dots per inch, because that's the way I took it, and then now I got to do more manipulation on top of it, that keeps degrading, and that's where you'll start to see those very unsharp lines, and you'll get lines that are buzzing on
all
it.
pixelated, so to speak. Yep.
So I don't know if I'm answering all your questions. So John, are there other questions that someone wants to get to me?
Well, I talked about like wrapping images, but we'll get to that as we go on.
Yep.
There's also a converter for WebP that you can get online that will convert it to JPEG. So, yes, there are other ways around this. Mark is trying to show you the easiest way.
Yeah. So no, Jerry, I agree with you 100%. There are other ways of doing it. I just like to do it the snipping method. And so my goal tonight is to give you a method that everybody can use. And please help each other out and always comment on there. Because if I can ever find something else, I'm always looking for it. Oh, someone stole the thunder. So I see Brian Katz stole their thunder on what we're going to be talking about when we clean up the edge. But that being said, so now I've got this here, this car with border. So let's save this out. File, save as, car with border. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And I'm simply going to put it out here and I'm going to say save. Same high resolution. I'm going to do one more thing and then I'm going to kind of turn it over to John for a few minutes. So the next question is, how do I prepare it for printing? And so what I typically will use is Word. And so let me kill that one. Don't save. So I'm going to bring up Microsoft Word. And I always print everything out of Word. I will typically take my image and I will lay it out as a landscape. And then I can simply go into here.
You're not on the.
Oh, sorry. I apologize for that. So I brought it up. I've got it here in landscape. I can take my image here, here with border, slide it up, and there's my image. It's ready to go. I will click on it. I'll put a couple spaces. Now, one thing that I'm going to point out here that to me is very, very important when I'm doing this. And do we have a piece of that? Do you have a piece of the paper, John? Can I grab one?
Oh, that paper.
Talk about the margin.
Yes.
Quick comment, Greg Kozad mentions InPixio. InPixio is also a free program, and it is excellent for removing backgrounds. If you want to take a background off of a picture, InPixio is easy and it's pretty good. It isn't perfect, but it's pretty good. So yeah, it's one that you can use for that. I use it all the time for getting rid of backgrounds.
So on this one, this is under the magic of TV. I've now taken the car image and I've printed it. And notice here that there's a border here that I use on the ones that I have. I do the ones that come with a little bit of a border. It makes it so easy to peel that label off. But you can see when I did this one, I've done it a long time ago. I noticed that when I first printed it, I just printed it wherever it laid off. I have now found that if I come back into the application and I come in here and I say margins and I do narrow on the paper that I use, that's going to put this piece right here up in the exact perfect corner so that I don't have to worry about it and I'll always get it to margin itself out.
And you'll get more pictures on a page.
You do.
Yeah.
And so you'll see there, yeah, just there, I can control C this.
If you need to rotate them sideways, with a circle, you can
Yep.
drag them and drop them. Sometimes you'll fit more on a page if you turn them upright.
Yes, I agree 100%. But all I want to show you is that this is I like Word here because it's a great, very simple way of taking the image, manipulating it in. And now if I go back to this one, my image is already printed and it's ready to apply to the tube.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take like a 1 minute timeout here. Ask any question, because now I'm going to turn this over to John, and John's going to go over all the stuff, all the magic he does. But if you have any questions, hopefully you come away with Photoshop Elements is a very easy, simplistic program to do. But you can see as you want to go on and you want to learn more about it, you have a great opportunity to play with a lot of different things that Photoshop can do. So we took you through the standard image. I added borders. I added text. I talked a little bit about color correction. With that, I'm going to drop off on the side, and I'm going to let John take over.
What? I was supposed to do something?
All right, before John comes in, Dean's going to talk a little bit here and tell you a few things.
So I first just want to add that everything that Mark went over works flawlessly. Sometimes I'm just not up for math and I don't want to do any of that.
Yep.
And if I have an image, so what I've noticed, when you have larger objects like the car, you can get away with a slight skew or a stretch. But if you have a person, someone's face, or say an animal, sometimes a little bit of distortion is going to throw the whole picture off. So I mentioned earlier about having more background. What I like to do is I'll leave plenty of background around it, but as long as you're using a higher resolution picture, you can zoom in and eliminate what you need to. But one thing I found, Mark, is it okay if I close this?
Oh yeah, please.
and
You
move
can
this?
take that whole thing down.
Can I throw it?
It's up to you. It'll be a long walk home for you.
It may be a long walk home. So
Okay.
get this and these. So oftentimes I'll start with, like Mark, you've got the brass tube. And if I'm not sure how large I need my image, this is how I avoid all the math. I get just a scrap piece of paper. What I'll do, I'll open my image in Word. I'll set my resolution to 600. That way I know it's large enough. And if I change my image size in Word, and all you do is click on the image, double click it, and up in the right-hand corner, the box will open and give you the size, and you can change that. And so I'll leave my parameters to where if I enlarge the height, the width is automatically going to grow. But as long as my image has plenty of background, I know I can cut a lot of that away. So I'll open the image up in Word, and I know my tube length, so I already have a starting point. And I'll go ahead and I'll magnify that to the length I need and maybe add 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. And then I'll print out maybe 3 or 4 examples, and I'll just change the size, maybe or just a fraction of an inch each time, maybe 1/8 of an inch. And then I'll print them out. I'll cut that image out on paper, and I'll wrap that around my tube to see my best fit. And once I know the way it lies on there, and if my image is large enough in the middle, I know which one I'm going to duplicate and print. And that way I don't have to go through shrinking it all down in Element and then printing it to size. I'll just resize it in MS Word. Another option is what I like to do. I'll take a pair of scissors and I'll just cut a piece to fit on that paper. And I'll wrap that tube and I'll get it, just rub over it slightly. And now I've left an indentation of where that's at. Now, as long as I cut beyond that mark, say 1/8 of an inch, I kind of know the size that I need. And then I can take my picture and hold that over it to see which one's going to work best. And it kind of gives me a rough idea of the size that I want. So it's just another way of doing it. It's no exact science, but it'll get you close, and then you just fine tune it. But I always suggest print on regular paper before you start printing on your decal paper. That way you're not wasting your decal paper, and you're just conserving it for when you really want to print once you've got it all ironed out. So as Mark said, there's a few ways we can hide seams. And there's also, I want to bring up, there's glossy and there's matte. I've used the glossy for a few things, and I like it. I like the results. Oftentimes, if I'm just doing a basic logo or some photograph, I'll just go with the matte label. That way, I don't have as many of issues in casting. I usually cast all of my labels in urethane resin. Mark casts his in polyester resin. So you can get away with gloss labels in polyester resin just fine. But what I find, if I use urethane resin like Alumilite Clear, when I pour my resin over this label, it's going to have bubbles in it. All resin is going to have bubbles. When you compress that, sometimes those bubbles will leave little bitty specks in the urethane on your picture. So when it's all said and done and you pull your cast out, you can see where there were bubbles by just little specks or little imperfections. So I'll use polyester resin on gloss, but I always use urethane with the matte.
If it's okay to say, I know I'm
Yeah.
off camera. I have switched. I use matte now on everything.
Do you?
Yeah, that was from. I will admit there's an expense to buying the label, so I had some old labels, and that's the one that I normally do. But if I had to err and I'm only going to do one, I would clearly get matte, because I think the resins itself will give it enough of a chatoyancy.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Your resins will give it the gloss that it needs. So I just find that I feel like even I had somebody come back and say some of the ink faded on a gloss label that I'd done. And it may have been, maybe I used a less expensive ink. I might have had an off-brand refill and didn't realize it. So quality ink will make a huge difference also in your prints. You want to go, I've had good luck with Canons. I've had good luck with the Epsons. I also have an Eco Tank. I've got 3 different printers, and it really all depends what I'm making. I'll test print one. If I don't like it, I'll try the other printer. And I've had real good luck with my Canon. It's just more expensive to buy ink. So the Eco Tank, you know, they're so much more affordable, and you get so much more ink, and they print nice. But like I said, not all printers print the image you want the way you want it. So you're going to have to play around with that. Mark was talking about then knowing your size and cutting them out. And you have a few options there, right? One is with a border. One is without a border. Some are with just images, like the car. One thing I've resorted to is if I can cut. Let me see. Oh, wrong one. If I can cut an image, let's pull this out of the way. This is the image I started with, and then this is the seam. This is the seam. So what I did, I allowed this background to hide itself by cutting along the edge of the tree. And this way, when I fold that around, this tree is going to wrap somewhere in here over the leaves. So it's going to look seamless. So anytime that you can print and cut along something in your background to overlap it, you'll be so much happier with the results because you don't have to work to hide the seam. Something else I started doing to kind of cheat. I had somebody ask me to make something with their logo. So what I did is I 3D printed this little window, and it allows me to come in here and center on my image and then shift one way or the other based on my overlap. And then I take a razor blade and I just cut around the edge. You could draw lines if you want, but it's just real simple to hold it and just cut it. So I've started using these as well, just to kind of mass produce, if you would say, you know, in a pinch when you have something without a border on it. Obviously,
Can I make one
yes.
quick point? Is it okay to jump in?
Yeah.
So on mine, if I had something that's without a border, when I take it into Word,
Yep, you put a
I'll
frame.
put a frame around it.
Mhm.
And the nice thing about, do you want to explain it? Because the frame goes, when you put a frame in Word, it puts it actually on the outside. So if you
Exactly.
cut the frame off, you're good. Sorry.
So,
please.
yep, and this, I'm glad you brought it up because
I
I forgot I
apologize.
had this. In this case, basically, the frame is where I want to cut. So you can change the width of your lines, and this one I went with the fine line, and then you just cut on the edge of your lines, so that way they're not there, but it's also going to be beyond the width of the tube. So the outers will get cut off, but you want to make sure that your overlap doesn't have the line, but it gives you the edge that you can cut on.
Yeah, the key is Word puts the frame outside the picture.
Yes. So a couple things to keep in mind. Labels, right? Mark hit on what we can do with the labels. And again, this is a picture of the family cat that allows me to live with them. And so I made a pen blank out of him. We can do like the military ribbons. And the nice thing about these is if you get your image just right, it looks like a perforated ribbon, the way it's all looks like it's folded. So you can cut along that with a nice straight edge, and it's pretty seamless. You will see just the base of it, and I always put them underneath the pocket clip. Other ideas, you can print a background for other things. And in this case, it was this Wonder Woman watch, and I wanted to have a flag behind it. So I was able to come up with the image, print the flag, and then put the watch parts on it. So it doesn't have to be the focus of the pen, but they also make great backgrounds. And obviously, you know, when you're using different labels and decals, it's all the same principle, right? You just want to make sure that everything is lined up straight, and we'll go over that in a few minutes. Lastly, in this one, I wanted to show you, this was a picture I took. It started out like this. I was on a vacation fishing trip, and I seen a piece of birch bark that had peeled off the tree, so I took a photograph of it. And now what I would do rather than having a straight edge, I want it to resemble birch right off the tree. So what I did was I cut it in a way that it looked like it peeled. So in this case, my image, my logo is against this edge. So this is my final overlap. So this way I've always got my edge close to where the pocket clip is going to be, and it'll overlap back here. But what I would do is come in here, and one of the times that I wouldn't cut straight, right? I would just come in here and make it look like it was all folded up or peeled off the tree that way. So that way, when this overlaps, it gives it that natural look of what birch paper would look like. And then it would overlap somewhere in here, and I'm going to get the basically the wrap that I want without it looking like a straight cut edge.
4 minutes, give Dean a couple minutes.
Okay. So what do we
watching
have?
for you.
Anything up here?
No, it's mostly but between people talking.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So when we cut these out and we want to fix the seam, obviously we can come in here with scissors, and you want to make sure, I always make sure that I cut the print. So when I'm done, I can still see color on this side. I don't want to try to cut to where I'm right on the edge of the white. I want to cut through that color. So then what I would do, of course, I don't have my blue Sharpie with me, but I would come in here probably with a blue Sharpie, and I would just touch this edge. I will show you with the black, but I would come in on this point here and come across it. Now you can hopefully see the black slightly.
A good demonstrator would say, I'd normally do it with blue, but I'm going to do it with black so you can see it on the camera today.
Right. Yeah. Well, not me. I didn't bring black or blue. So,
And you can't see the black.
and you can't see the black. But basically what this is going to save you is when these overlap, you're not going to see white along this edge. It's going to be blue. So somebody asked, what do you do with white? Not much. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do with a white edge that's going to help hide it, except, and this is just my thought on it, what I do is I look at this and say, all right, if this is a right-handed pen, let me get a decal here.
When you're done with that, can you show up the label of the paper that you're using? The
Yes.
label paper. Thank you.
So if this were my pen and I was going to use this white label, I'm always going to assume that my image is going to be the focus. So I want my overlap to be above, so that way my pocket clip will come down. So when I overlap this, and of course I'm going to trim all that excess off, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to overlap it basically to where when this is down, the eye is looking at it this way. You're not going to notice the seam because it rolls back away from the eye. If the seam were forward like this, you're staring right into that seam. So I always make sure that the seam is going away from my image on the back side. Now, if you're left-handed, you might want to do it just the opposite.
That's an excellent point that 99.9% of people miss.
It's all
I
going to
love that point.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to the focus on the pen, right? So if I'm going to come in like this, I'm going to make sure that my overlap is away from me. So I hope that clears a few things up.
Take
And
5 for Dean.
We're going to take a few minutes of a break here.
Basically, we're going to let Dean tell you about the specials that are going on because it's been an hour and it's an opportunity for us to regroup and get the camera set up for us. And if you don't mind, let's let Dean talk for a while.
So Dean is here. So Dean's going to talk a little bit. I just posted a link in the sale. Almost all the supplies you're going to see tonight are on sale. I'll link that in a second. But in the other thing I'm going to do is Dawn is giving away a casting set. That casting set is going to be 2 pounds of aluminite slow, a rolling jig, which you'll see in a little bit, some Sierra tubes, and some label paper. To do that, type label. I'm going to give that a second. Oops. Type label, small caps, doesn't matter, but label into the chat and we'll get you signed up for that. And then again, the sale today will include John's casting system that you'll see a little later, some playing card assortment because they're going to be talking about playing cards, a Luminite clear slow, the casting jig, and the waterproof case label.
Do you want me to get this on what?
Yeah, go ahead and take that. Just that way I don't get any resin on it.
That's mine. Yeah.
We'll give that another minute or so, and then I will post the link up on the up here up the website again. If you go to that website for the sale, will be on sale till midnight tonight Central Standard Time, and scroll down a little bit to see the label supplies. There's some pen kits and some other stuff on sale, but if you scroll down, you'll see it all. I still see some people coming. Let's see. We're up to 53 entries. Let's give it another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll do the drawing. $59 entries. All right. We're a little over 60 entries, and I'm going to run the drawing. All right, guys, you're live.
Is he done?
It's better than the cloth than the dirty tablecloth.
Well, we can, he's got tape on there so we can see it. Thank you. It's a good idea. Dennis.
Okay.
Back to us. Pointing at us, I guess that means it's
All right, back to us. Congrats to a lucky winner. Looks like Anna won. All right. So here's the tricky part. Everybody always asks, how do I keep my labels stuck to the tube? There's a couple options. When I'm dealing with labels, I take the tubes right out of the bag. If I rub over them, sometimes you get them, they're pre-scuffed. And if that's the case, you might want to wipe them down with a little bit of alcohol. Sometimes from the pre-scuffing from the manufacturer, they'll have all that grit still in them, a little bit of the sanding dust. So it's nice to wipe them off. If they're smooth, then, and I'm touching them, I may take a cloth and just wipe my finger oils off of them. For the most part, I think you're going to be fine. Where it all comes into play is how you handle your decals. So real quick, another thing I do, you have a couple options when you stick these on there. Obviously, I've cut these out. I've got them all trimmed down to the size. Basically, using the window or having the box, or however I'm going to do that, I'm going to come in here on the cat and I'm going to run a marker across the top. Now, it's real important. Don't tip the marker in and get him on the top because then it's ruined. So you're always better to turn it upside down and go across. So that way, if you accidentally touch the surface, it's on the backside. Okay. Now hang on to the marker. This comes in handy in a second.
You're doing that before you peel it off the backing, correct?
Absolutely. Yes. Don't peel this off until you're ready to stick it down. So I leave the backing on and I draw my edges to discolor them, whatever, to hide them. On the white, I'm not going to bother with it because it's not going to hide anything. And if I put a black line on the white label, I'm just going to draw more attention to it. So the trick is don't touch the edge of the label. Now we have a couple options. Exotic Blanks has these little templates, which are real nice because what you can do is place your label in here. Place your label in here, and then come in with your tube, drop down on the edge, and it is where you want, and then you can roll it. Those work real good if you've got everything cut exactly to size. If you don't have exactly to size and you're going to kind of shift it a little bit and figure out where you want it, what I do is this. I start at the end of the decal. This is my top edge. This is my final overlap. I don't want to touch this edge until I have to. I want to make sure if I part this, when I part this, I want to part it on the bottom because it's going to be overlapped, but I also want to part it to where I'm touching the outer edge that's going to get cut off. So what I do is I come in here and I start to crease it a little bit, fold that corner over, and then as it folds over, it starts to separate. You can take a razor blade if you want, and that will help to separate those. But basically, all you want to do is be able to peel that apart. So I'll peel that apart, but I'm touching the bottom. So here's my label. This is my top edge. I'm still touching the bottom. So I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to only touch the middle of that label. I'm not going to touch any of the other edges. Now I notice I'm using a notebook. Maybe I can do it over here. Notice I'm using notebook paper. The nice thing about notebook paper is I can line my decal up on an edge, and I can line my tube fairly close. Now the nice thing is if I slide this in, I'm going to hit it. As long as I cut that edge straight, I'm going to hit it. Now my fingerprint is in the middle. I'm not concerned about that because now I'm going to roll it. But before I roll it all the way up, I'll take a marker, and this is a nice clean one, much nicer than mine. Thank you, Ed. And I'll just kind of roll over this edge a little bit. And what that does, it just knocks it down a little flatter. Now, obviously, I have a little more of an overhang because I just trimmed this real quick to show you, but I will roll this over, and then I'll come back with this marker and lay it on this edge and roll it down. And that will just kind of help. I don't want to rub it. I just want to roll it because you don't want to burn the edge like this. You just want to roll it. Then I love these. I use a lot of razor blades.
I can see that.
I buy them by the hundreds. So then I take my razor blade and I'll come in here and I'll push down on this edge and slowly cut in and just roll the tube. And I'll do the same on this side. I'll just cut in on the edge and then I'll roll the tube. And now I'm cut clean on my edges and I'm ready to cast.
Now our safety measure, announcement, razor blades are sharp.
Yes.
Please do not cut yourself with the razor blade. Our
Always-
safety is taken care of.
Always handle the razor blade on this folded back edge. Don't apply pressure. Nothing worse than grabbing a razor blade, having it backwards in your hand and pressing down and realizing you just embedded that edge into your thumb.
Yeah, not a good thing.
I'm not going to admit to doing that, but I'm going to tell you it hurts. So that's basically how I would roll that out and stick it down.
Is it okay to jump in on something?
Yes.
Are you going to get, if I'm stealing your thunder, just say no. One of the things though that people will ask all the time is if they mess it up, can they peel it off and then do it again?
Right.
Please
So
answer that one.
the joy of these vinyl weatherproof labels, when you put them down, that's it. If you have to peel it up and try to fix it, throw it in the garbage. It's not going to work. You can't reposition them. So you have to be on your game. It's important that you have a a straight edge, a cut straight edge on both sides. That way, when you slide that into your tube or you slide that up against your jig, you know it's straight. Nothing else is going to get out of whack. So let's do the cat.
And one thing, you may think when you redo it that you've got it sealed up. You
It's
don't.
not going to hold.
You don't.
Yeah. First off, they stick so well that by the time you pick at them to peel them off, you've already distorted that edge. So it's stretched. It's not going to lay down flat. And if you manage to roll over it and get it to lay down flat, there's no integrity of strength behind it. So once the resin gets in there, it's going to get underneath of it, and that seam's going to peel up. We'll do the cat the same way. I'll use the jig this time. So again, here's my top edge. This is the edge I want to do last. So I'm going to start at the base, and I'm going to pinch this, fold this over. And it's hard to see on white, but I've found that if you basically fold it and crimp it, it will come apart. Of course, I'm on camera, so why would it work?
Razor blade. It's up to you.
Yep. So a lot of times I'll come in here with the razor blade and pull back on this edge. See if I can, if you can actually see it. But when you pull back on it, you'll start to see them separate, and then come in there. Geez, I should have brought my glasses.
Hmm. I'd help you, but I don't have a fingernail.
Let's go to the next one. Oh, and I just trimmed my fingernails, not thinking about it. So this is the joy of buying them sheets. So these are the sheets that you can buy pre-perforated or cut labels. But the problem with those, they're never the size you want. So I like to buy the full sheets with no border because I'm going to cut them anyhow. But that way I can, there it is. I can use the whole edge.
I prefer the full sheets also. I mean, that way when I'm in Word, I can use every single inch of that thing if I wanted to.
All right, so here we go. We're going to peel this off, and notice I'm handling the outer bottom edge of it. So the edge that's going to be stuck last is out here. So I'm going to put my finger in the middle. I'm going to slide it up to my edge. And I'm going to drop my tube in here. Roughly centered front to back. I want to make sure you got that. There we go. And then I'm going to start to roll. Now, the problem with this is you're going to have to come in here and stick this edge down, right? So as you roll this up, again, I come in here and I don't know if I need to, but I always feel better flattening that edge out. I just think it overlaps better. So now that I've got it, I'm just going to take my time and roll it. And then I'm going to come back here with my plastic Sharpie because there's no marks on it. So it's nice. It's not going to leave any paint transfer. And I'm going to roll over that edge. And I'm just giving it some moderate pressure. Not enough to dent or collapse the tube, but just enough to push that all down. You can also, if you want, take a smooth edge and just roll over it real well. It's not going to hurt anything. And then you're going to get a nice seam on there. And then you're going to come in here with your razor blade. Now, I know some people use scissors, and that's fine too. If you're not comfortable using a razor blade, use a pair of scissors. But I'll come in here. And I will say, if your razor blades have been used and they're a little dull, you can tear these decals. So use a new, nice, sharp, clean razor blade. And every, say, 10 or 15 decals, swap it out. So now we have our blank all ready to go, and we can prepare it for the casting. So what I like to do, I will then take that backing off of that decal, and because I was using a Sierra tube, I just put an S on it, and now I'll use that as a template. So when I'm cutting the rest out, I'll lay it up there and I know my width, and I'll cut. Or if I print something and I don't think I left enough room, I've got this to compare. And we'll use this later with our playing cards as well, because this will help us get our size down. I've always got, whether it be a piece of paper or the back off of the decals, you'll see with a junior lower, junior upper, Sierra, bolt action, whatever. But I keep these because then it helps me get to size when I'm cutting my next ones out. So we good for that? Let's see. Anything
Which
else?
resin do you use for gloss and matte? He forgot.
What's that?
Which resin for gloss and which for matte? He
Okay,
forgot.
so if you're using gloss labels, stick with polyester resin. The best for that would be Silmar 41. And if you're using the urethane for the mattes, well, you can use any resins for the matte. There's no specific. They all work with matte, but the gloss, I find polyester resin, Silmar works best. Let's see. Love the cat pig as well. Need to sell these for cat lovers. I actually do. This is Figaro. This is how I make him earn his keep. I sell a few blanks to pay for his cat food. So let's see. Oh, the clear. Yep, the templates. And there's a lot of templates out there. This is just something that I come up with that worked for me. So the rolling jigs are nice, especially when you're doing a bunch of them, because once you get it rolled out, you flip it over, you got a great, clean, smooth area, and you can get a good bond for rolling everything out to finalize it. So now with my label casts, I always use urethane resin, which is Alumilite clear or clear slow. I prefer clear because it has a shorter working time, but it also has a quicker curing time. So you can wait an hour and a half for clear. You can wait 3 hours for clear slow. Clear slow has its purposes, which is for larger pores because it doesn't generate heat as quickly, so you won't get thermal cracking in your final results. But it works fine for small castings as well.
You'll need to download one.
My watch is talking to me. My phone, sorry.
The other thing about Alumilite is versus poly is the smell.
Yes. Do you guys sell Silmar?
No.
Okay, so I've found Silmar. You'll find it online. You just Google Silmar 41. There's two places that I've dealt with. One's, I think, in Florida, and the other one's here in Wisconsin. There's Composite Envisions and U.S. Composites. It's a very strong odor. It's a very long working time, but you're also going to have to put it under pressure and let it cure for 18 hours. A lot of people don't use pressure for polyester resins. I advocate always use pressure. That way you don't have that little oops. If I went through all the time and expense to make the blank, do I want to leave it to chance if they said this resin will work outside of pressure? No, I'm going to use pressure because it's going to just increase my my success rate.
Are you going to talk later about the difference between which one's harder and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I'll hit on that real quick.
Okay.
Good, thank you. So there's three basic resins that we have on the market for us hobbyist casters, right? For these guys doing it in our shops, we have epoxy, we have polyester resins, and we have urethane resins. Everybody's heard of Alumilite in the casting world. Alumilite is actually the brand. The model of the resin itself is either clear slow, the whites, the tans, the blacks. Now, if you see amazing clear, that's epoxy. Anything usually with the word amazing before it from that company means that it's an epoxy resin. Epoxies are a whole different world. I will say I don't use a lot of epoxy. I resort to epoxy resin when I can't get anything else to work, then I'll try it. But my opinion with epoxies, not only are there new brands coming up every other week, there's so many on the market, but you have to really know what you're getting. Some epoxies are made for 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch pores only, so you're going to spend time layering it up. Some are made for bar tops, countertops. Some are made for floor. Others are made for turning. But epoxy is actually a softer resin. It doesn't shine up as well on its own, and it takes a real long time to cure. So I know I can cast this cat blank in Alumilite clear. In an hour and a half, I can demold it, and I can turn it tomorrow. I could turn it tonight, but I always say you should give it at least 24 hours to fully cure. Epoxy resin, you pour it today, you might take it out of the mold tomorrow, maybe the day after, and then you're going to wait 5 to 10 days for that to fully cure before you use it. And epoxies will actually turn kind of an amberish yellow before any other resins will. Polyester resins, the Silmar 41s, they're your hardest resin, but like Mark was saying, they actually have a very strong odor. They'll smell up the shop, the neighborhood, the house, wherever you're casting. This is the stuff that you've seen for years, and they use it in the boat building, the fiberglass applications, the carbon fiber stuff. It works well, but it smells terrible, and you have to make sure you're wearing your safety precautions, which would be a respirator, gloves, glasses, and always have shop clothes on. Now in a little bit, I'm going to cast in my exotic blank shirt, but I'm going to put a smock on just in case, because if you get any type of resin on your clothes, it's not going to wash out. It's going to be a discolored or a little hard spot on your clothing, and eventually it will tear or burn out. So,
I do just find that Silmar is a much purer, cleaner, glossier look to
absolutely.
it.
So when it comes to finishing your resins, Silmar 41, the polyester resin, you can turn it down without ever having to do anything else to it. There's no need for a spray finish, a CA finish. You can micro mesh it, polish it, buff it, whatever, and it's glass. It finishes great. If you've ever turned one of my feather blanks, that's polyester resin. If you've ever turned a snakeskin blank from anybody, I believe they're all polyester resin, because snakes won't work with any other resins that I've found. The urethane resins, the clear slows, you can get a moderate shine to it, but the problem is it's probably not going to last. It will dull with use, like anything. I don't care what the finish is. It's going to dull with your naked resin is going to dull with use. So one of the best ways I found to avoid that would be put a CA finish over it. And I like the Glue Boost, because the CA is actually harder than the resin. So it's always going to hold a shine much longer, and it's easier for you to take a rag and buff that up or shine it up with little effort.
And I will say, I think that's the biggest misconception that I see on a lot of websites, Facebook pages, and stuff like that, that Alumilite really doesn't need a post finish on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, it doesn't. But on the other hand, when you do it, even on a color cast, it's going to make the colors more vibrant. It'll make the colors more distinct. And on a clear cast, it's just going to give you vibrancy.
Exactly. So I want to hit a couple of these questions here. Shelf life of Silmar. I've had it for a year, but I usually buy 5 or 6 gallons of that stuff at a time. So I may have it 8 to 12 months before I go through all of it. I've never had a problem, but how you store it means everything. Yeah. Keep it in the original container, all of your resins, whatever it is, keep it in the original container, keep the lid on, keep it sealed, keep it in a dark, cool area. My shop is actually in my basement. I have a part of it quartered off with a door, and my casting room is in the back along an outside wall. So the cement floor always stays a little cold in the winter, maybe a little too cold, but it's great for resin preservation. You can't hurt it if you keep it cool. So you don't want to keep it in sunlight. Silmar 41 comes in a metal can. You don't want to keep that where light's going to shine on it and warm up the metal, or it's going to grab heat, because it does cure by heat. So
housekeeping, Silmar 41, that metal can, after you pour it, you have to clean that, because that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. Anytime, any resin, but especially with Silmar 41, wipe the can lid off with a rag before you put the lid back on it, because what's going to happen is you're going to glue the cap to the container, and then you're going to need a pair of channel locks to get it off. And if you've ever seen a picture of my casting room, on my casting table, I have basically a holder with a pair of channel locks in it, because even the side B of any urethane resin that I use, the Alumilite products, side B always gets a little thick and crusty, and every now and then I've got to take channel locks and pop the lid off. So let's see, what use pressure if you can. Absolutely. Labels, somebody had asked, do I have to wait before I print them? Nope. Once I would print this label, by the time I take it off the printer and get my brass tubes and get my scissors or my razor blade, my straight edge, I might cut them within 15 minutes of printing them, and then I'm going to stick them down to my tubes. And the time that it takes me to put to get this in my mold to cast it, I'm going to pour resin over it. There's no waiting. Your ink's not going to run. These weatherproof labels just hold the images and the inks very well, so there's no reason to wait.
I'll read some to you.
Yep.
What about liquid glass?
I believe that's probably an epoxy, I believe.
I think it is.
I mean, you're going to have to experiment. There's just too many epoxy resins on the market for me to say I've used them all, because again, they're every time you turn around, a new one's on the market. Epoxy is great resin for jewelers, for people doing small pours, or for pouring over something that you can't fit in a pressure pot, or that you don't think might be 100% dry. It's great for all that stuff because it's pretty forgiving. But I avoid any of the epoxies because I don't like how they turn yellow after a short amount of time, and I don't like to wait 10 days to turn it.
So
Someone had asked about, or made a comment about the Alumilite, that they get a better shine if they wait a few days. And absolutely, you're going to, because the resin has fully cured by then. And fully cured resin has reached its hardest point. So hard resin shines better, but I will tell you, it's not going to hold that shine. It's not going to stay. If you turn this pen and it's urethane, you turn it, you polish it, you buff it, you put it together, you're going to notice after a while it's going to lose that shine because it's naked resin and it just doesn't hold that to normal use.
Nathan asks, using PR, what is your failure rate? Because he believes he has had more failures than successes.
Nathan, you and I are in the same boat. And we've actually talked about this. That's a great question. It really all comes down to what you're casting. I like PR, but PR doesn't always like me. I only cast feathers in polyester resin. And as Ed and Dawn know, and Mark, they've heard me cry in my resin before. It's not uncommon based on what time of year it is, if the humidity's high, if the casting gods are mad at me that day, something goes wrong. It's not uncommon to have more failures than successes.
And there's 3 or 4 comments on here for people who are suggesting using either a silicone or a rubber cap for their Alumilite.
Mine don't last that long. I mean, once I pop the cap off, I'm good. I buy mine in the 80-pound sets, so I just keep filling the gallon jugs to reuse them. But yeah, I know there's silicone caps out there that some of the guys are making.
So that clears up most of the questions.
Yeah, and that's a great solution to that. There was something. So one thing I wanted to kind of hit on with Nathan's question there. I think the reason why a lot of people have failures with polyester resin and labels is because it takes 18 hours to cure. So your label is basically soaking that long, waiting for this resin to get hot and hard and cure, and it has time to work it on its edges. And if there's not a large enough overlap, or maybe the label was old, you've had them for a while, they will get dry. I always store them in the containers that they come in, but who's to say, right? Sometimes we don't know how long they sat at the manufacturer or what they went through. Maybe it was a real hot day when the postal people brought it to you. So I usually try to use a resin that's going to cure fairly quick. And that's why I like the urethane when I'm using labels, because within an hour, probably within 20 or 30 minutes. Once it hits, I think about, 150, 160 degrees, it's probably hard enough that label's not going to move. And that the rest of that curing point is just waiting for it to reach its shore hardness. So urethanes are always, I think, the way to go when you're casting labels.
Dean pointed out that we missed Sarah's question. Sorry about that, Sarah. Friction polish on resin.
So I started out using friction polish, and that was probably 20 years ago. If you like it, use it. I'm going to tell you, friction polish is just that, right? It's built up layers based on friction. Well, when you use that pen and you touch that pen, that's friction. So you put it on by friction, but you're also going to remove it by friction. And by normal use, the friction polish is going to break down, and it's just not going to last. I would rather spray a urethane pen with lacquer than use a friction polish. And the new lacquer that Glue Boost came out with, I've used that, and it's great stuff, and it sets up within 12 hours, and you can do a final sanding or steel wool or buffing if you need to, but it sprays on great. It lays down flat, and it's pretty simple. It makes you look pretty good.
Talk a little bit more about failure rate. When you do 36 at a time and you put 36 pieces in there under the same circumstances every time.
Yeah, good point.
And yet, go ahead.
So that's a very good point. I always say when you start casting, get a logbook. Even if it's just a notepad, write down what you're doing. because there's going to come a point, and it happens, when things don't turn out. And you're going to want to go through those notes to say, what can I do different to change my outcome? Should I warm my resin before I pour it? Should I warm the blank before I pour resin over it? Should I use less pressure in the pressure tank? Should I let it cure longer? What can I do differently? So keeping notes on everything that you do. How long did I mix it properly? How did I mix it? All of that's going to come into play when you try to break down all those variables to figure out where it went wrong. But sometimes, like Ed said, I'll cast 36 blanks at a time. So this is the 18 cast rack. And this is what I advocate to a lot of people that use it, that are just making blanks for themselves. I don't make pens to sell. I make pens to give away or donate. So because I make money selling blanks, that allows me to give my work away. So if I were just going to make pens myself, I'd start out with the 18 hole rack, and it's plenty big enough. I'm probably not even going to fill it all. But now that I cast full time, I'm making opals, I'm making the candy wrappers, the feathers, the snakes. I need to maximize how many I can cast at one time. So I'll make 36 feather blanks at a time. I'll tube them all up, put them in the rack. I'll mix all of the resin at the same time. It came out of the same can. I do it all exactly the same, and I'll pour all 36 of those. Sometimes 10 won't turn out. Sometimes only 10 turned out. Sometimes shit happens, and I can't stress that enough in resin casting. It's going to test your patience. It's going to frustrate you. When I first started casting, I was actually sitting at home trying to figure out how to put feathers on a tube, and I know I had probably over 200 failures before I ever got one good cast. But that's how we learn, right? We keep track of what we do. We learn what doesn't work, and by keeping notes, you can apply that to another material down the road. So it's important to try everything you can to get the results you want.
Can I make one quick comment on this? I don't know if you're going to cover it coming up, but especially when you talk about Alumilite. Alumilite, when you do it, you need a pretty exact measurement of A and exact measurement of B when you're putting them together, right?
Yep.
So if I'm going to try and I'm going to cast one blank or two blanks or three blanks, getting that exactly precise is a challenge.
Silicone plugs.
If I'm going to, pink,
Yes.
Here.
Are there some?
okay. If I'm going to cast, 16, 24, 36, I can be off just a little bit and I'm fine.
So it really, it's a learning curve. When you start casting, you're going to have, well, here, we're going to have a scale. You're going to have something to mix.
Do you need more?
Yeah, I actually need a couple to do the pour. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to need. Mark, look in that box just to see if it's in the bottom, but I don't think it is.
That's good. I don't see it.
No? All right. All right, Ed's getting me some tapered plugs because in all the mass hysteria of trying to get everything together that I needed, I left out one of the most important things, and that's the tapered plugs. It's so much easier when I'm at home showing someone how to do this because I know where everything's at. So here's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with 2 cups. And because Alumilite, urethane resin, is a 2-part resin, it's equal parts of A and B by weight, and it's all on the bottle, which is nice. There's no mixing this up. The directions are very clear, but I always mark my cups. So I'll mark it so you can see it. So I always put an A on one cup and a B on the other cup. That way, if I pour more than one tank in a day, I can keep reusing these cups and I don't cross-contaminate them. I don't want to pour B in this and then a few minutes later accidentally pour A in it, because now what I've done is I've started my curing process in this cup. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what I use, I've got Delrin bases. This is where we're going to get a little clouded. I've got these Delrin bases. As you can see, they come in real handy for holding these blanks. Now I cast everything vertically. And again, the reason for that is because I can get twice as many, 10 times the amount in a tank. So these tapered plugs I'm going to basically put in each end of the tube. And now it's airtight. Nothing's going to get in them. And I'm going to take this tube and I'm going to eyeball center. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to push it on there. So that way, when I stand this up, it's standing on the base. Now you notice it's not exactly perfect. And guess what? It doesn't have to be, because when we turn it, we're going to turn it round based on the center of this tube, right? So I've heard people say, oh, it's got to be perfectly centered. It doesn't. We can turn that thing round. Doesn't matter. We've turned out of round objects round before, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to eyeball it. So what I'm going to do is I'll put a couple of these in here. I will say this, when you're pouring resin, it's better to have half a dozen or more blanks than it is to have one or two. It's harder to properly mix a little bit of resin. It's easier to mix a larger volume of resin. So I always like to have at least a dozen when I do it. But next, I'm going to take these clear casting tubes, and Ed and Dawn have these here on Exotic Blanks. They come in 12-inch sections, and I just take a pair of shears like this, and I cut them off. But if you notice, I've got one that I keep over the scissors, and it says keep. And I replace that every so many weeks because it wears out and cracks. But I use this as my template. So that way I can grab a full 12-inch rod and cut it off where I want it, and then take the rest of it and cut it off where I want it. So I always know I've got the length I need. And all I'm going to do is just rub my fingernail in that just to flange it out a little bit. Put it over the top of this tube and kind of wiggle it and press down. And there's my tube over top. And I'll do that to every one of them. Now, this is purely whatever your preference is. You can pour these in a mold. There's all kinds of molds out there. A lot of them are smaller molds where you'll get 2 tubes in it, a silicone base, and then you pour your resin over the top of it. And if you like it, go with it. For me, I can't cast enough at one time. I can put 18 in this. I can't put probably 6 of those square tubes in my tank. But if you're not casting a lot, do what works for you. The other thing, though, if I cast this tube basically horizontally and I pour my resin in, as the resin comes up, it forces the air out. But there's bubbles in there. Those bubbles are going to hang up on that tube, and they can end up anywhere. If my pressure leaks out of the tank, I can have air hanging up underneath of this, or rolls around, gets hooked on a seam. If I cast it vertically, all of my air floats straight up the tube. So even if I have air hanging out on top, I'm cutting that off anyhow, because I always pour over the tube and up maybe about halfway up the tapered plug. Sometimes I accidentally go over the top of the plug and you just pry it out. So not a big deal. Next, what I'm going to do is take some of these springs, and it's
There's
not.
nobody calling right now.
Oh my
Let me
God.
know if you want to make a call.
I apologize. I'm leaning on my phone and she's talking back. So I take these springs and I basically wrap them around, and then they stick right in the top of these tapered plugs. And then I'm just going to center it, right? I can move this around anywhere I need to get it centered and put it in my rack. So I know there were a few things on the market. There were like plugs or discs that set all the way in the opening and then would push down. And if that works for you, use it. I'll be honest with you, I don't like them because this leaves a big opening on top so air can come out and I can pour resin in very easily without waiting for it to filter through the slots of a 3D print or any other type of washer or anything. You don't have to use these springs. You can just hope that it's straight enough. And I've done that a few times.
I'll tell you the nice thing about using the spring on the top of it is you get a much more consistent control of how much resin you're putting in it.
Oh, absolutely.
When you do the other one, and if it's on the top, if it was to roll in, it goes over the top of it. I've been a convert to your system for I don't know how many years, and I love it. I think I've got one of your original racks you gave me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What did I do?
You got that on there really good.
I got a longer tube, don't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a thicker tube that ain't gonna fit over that for some reason. This one fit.
That's on there tight.
Just go to another.
Yeah. So here's how we would pour this. And again, it's easy to mix a lot of resin. Oh, thank you. It's easy to mix a lot of resin than a little.
That's what an assistant does.
Absolutely.
I just prep your blanks for
I
you.
should have been snapping. Oh, Mark. All right, so I'll put a tube. Let me put a wire on this one. There we go. So that's basically what we're going to start out with. Now we need a digital scale. You want a scale that weighs in grams because it's the smallest, more accurate unit of measurement. And you want a way to mix your resin. Now, if you watch on YouTube, there's a lot of people that use popsicle sticks or tongue depressors or any of that kind of stuff. And if your resin's thin enough, you can do that. The problem is, though, a lot of times your resin will actually get thicker as it sits, especially if it's in a cool area. So you're going to have problems with getting it mixed quick enough to pour it. So what I like to do is I've got a drill designated, and I've had this drill for 20-something years. As you can see, she's almost broke in, and it's only for resin mixing. So I'm using a spade bit. I took a 1-inch spade bit. I snapped the tip off. I just put the tip in the vise, tightened it down, and snapped it off. They break real easy. And then I rolled it on the belt sander, and I rolled all these edges on edge and face back and forth. That way there's no sharp edges that are going to cut through my cups. Now, normally, I would use a mixing container like this. I like to weight A and B individually so that they're equal and then pour them both in here. But I'm usually filling this thing almost to the top because I'm pouring 36. In this case, we'll just use the cup. Now, when you buy your resin, this is how it's going to come. This is urethane resin, Alumilite clear, A and B. So B is always a little thicker, but it was warm today, so there was no having to warm this up. Get some gloves here.
Back to safety.
So I did not bring a respirator because you would not be able to hear me talk. It sounds like Bane from Batman. But there's not a lot of odor from urethane resin. And I'm not going to say there is anything harmful, but you're not going to smell it. So it's still important to use in a well-ventilated area and wear a respirator. So what I'm going to do is shop rags. They're handy too. Always wiping stuff off. I would normally have safety glasses on, and I forgot them. So I remembered the resin. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn this scale on. I'm going to get equal amounts of A and B. So I'm going to actually pour more than what I need. So that way I know when the cup's set up, I know that we can open this and not wait the full amount. So they usually hold about an ounce each, so but I want extra. So there's 5.
Do you want to comment while you're talking about why I've seen a bunch of people on YouTube and Facebook
Pour into 1 cup.
pouring into 1 cup?
Jeez, it turned off on me. Yeah, so as you notice, I'm pouring all of it individually in cups. I'm not pouring it all into 1 cup. You know what's going on? I bet my batteries are dying. I'm good.
Okay.
Yep, battery's low, but I was able to see it was 5. So
Okay, I got one.
we're good.
Okay.
So for me, I like to pour A and B separately in different cups for the simple fact that if I have an oops moment and I overpour B or overpour A after I've already poured the B, I don't have to now go back to the B and pour a little bit of B. And what if, geez, did I put enough? How much did I really need? How much should I actually overpour? If I do these individually, I'm not starting my working time yet because they haven't touched. I can measure them. If I have to pour a little bit back in the container, I can do that. I'm safe.
And there's
So-
a lot of dynamic math that you have to start coming up with in your head.
And if you're like me, you're going to knock a cup over and spill it. You're going to get it on the floor, on your shoes. You're going to have to remember, well, how much did I actually lose? It's not mixed yet. So I save myself a lot of extra hassle. I pour them individually. So I used 1 cup. I'm going to use the same cup for a week because it's labeled. I'm going to keep casting with it and pouring it into my larger container to mix. Just for tonight, because there's only 4 cups, I'm going to do this in one. So I always pour the thicker resin into the thinner resin. And only because it's easier to get it away from the edge of the cup. If I poured the thin into the thick, what's going to happen is now I'm going to work extra hard to pull that thick away from the wall of the cup and get it properly mixed.
Do you have a recommendation on the cups?
Yes, thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
So when you look at the bottom of your cups, there's a triangle. And in that triangle is a number. You can use 1s, 2s, 5s. Don't use number 6. Even for your molds. I don't care what you use. Don't use number 6. Number 6, the bottoms will start to decay and disform, and pretty soon they'll drop off, and all of your resin is going to be on the table or the floor. So avoid number 6 recycling code. These cups are a 5. I've been using them long enough. These are a generic cup from my local Kroger, and I buy them. They're 19-ounce cups. They come in a 50-pack for, I think, about $7 or $8. So
Is it okay to jump into?
Yeah.
At home, I use paper cups,
Yeah.
but you
don't
want to talk about it?
Yeah,
Go
you
ahead.
don't want the wax.
Right.
So there's paper cups. Go to the Dollar General store. You can buy those for $1.25. They're the white, blue, or red plastic cups. You can use that kind of stuff. There's so much to use. Don't use number 6.
And don't use the paper cups. Cannot have
Wax.
a wax.
Yeah, don't use wax. So how much weight of each pen blank? So that's all going to come down to basically experience and how large it is. Obviously, a Sierra is going to have a little more resin around it than, say, a junior gent, an upper junior gent. So usually I have about 1 ounce of resin, roughly, but it can be off based on how large the tube is. Some tubes are taller. A Zen would I actually use more because it's a much taller tube and a 10 and a half diameter. So
Well, you know what? That's a great point, because then that way, with the tubes that I have, I don't have to have separate molds. If I
Right.
wanted to do a Zen, I don't have to go find a Zen mold to use. I
Right.
just cut the tube at a different different length.
right, and that's again why I like the vertical, because all I may have to do is change the size of these tapered plugs. And there's 5 different sets that Ed carries here. Ed and Dawn have everything from a slimline 7mm all the way up to a full majestic solid tube. So
But a
depending-
diamond neural roller ball or something like that. You've got 2 different tubes in there.
two
It
tubes,
works
yeah.
great.
Any of the roller balls, you're going to have an upper and a lower, which are the different diameters. But these pink tubes will work for Sierras, cigars, the junior lowers. You'll use the pink more than anything. And then the larger junior series would be the red tubes or the red plugs. So, all right, so here's what we're going to do. Try not to get resin on the tablecloth. So I'm going to mix B into A because B is a little thicker. Now, if it were the middle of winter and my resin was really cold, and right now this resin is 68 degrees. Geez, that's great. Normally it's 53 degrees in my basement sitting on the cement floor. So a lot of times I'll take a 125 watt light bulb from the local farm mart, and I'll put it in a clamp light back here, and I'll put a metal roasting pan over it for about 10 minutes, and that will warm B, only B, up to about 90 to 100 degrees. That way it's thinner. And I know a lot of people say, yeah, but now my working time is shorter. Yeah, but so is your mixing time. So you can spend 2 minutes mixing thick resin, or you can spend 30 seconds mixing warmer resin, and it's still going to give you plenty of working time.
Is it okay to jump in?
Yeah.
A lot of times when I've got it, if my B is way too cold, I'll actually do a warm bath. I'll put it in a
Yep.
bigger bucket.
Yep.
And I'll go up to my kitchen.
There's so many
I'll
ways
do
of
hot
doing
water
it.
in there and then just let it submerge and float in there for a little while.
If I know I'm going to use a full gallon of resin tomorrow, I may take it upstairs in the middle of dead winter and just set it in front of the warm heat
Yep.
register and let warm air blow on side B all night. That way tomorrow it's nice and usable. Yes, the silicone plugs are reusable, and I will show you in a second. Let's cast these real quick, and then I will show you how I demold another one. So, all right, I'm mixing B into A. And I didn't bring a stir stick to scrape the cup, but that's all right. We don't need it. It's not that big. We have enough resin that if we're off a little bit, it's not going to be a problem.
But yeah, I would use a stir stick.
But
on
normally,
that.
yes, I would come in here and just scrape the side and get the extra out. We're good. Don't worry about it. So now I'm going to come in here. As you put this stuff together, you're going to see it's kind of like salad dressing, you know, the oil and vinegar, it's all filmy. I'm already past that part, Dawn, so it's okay. So now I'm going to come in here with the drill. Now I'm going to mix this. Now I can tell you right now, that is almost all mixed. Maybe a little bit of slight separation in there, but that wasn't even 20 seconds probably. If I were doing that with a popsicle stick, we'd probably be here for at least a minute and a half. So you may have a 7-minute working time, and then by the time you warm your resin up, maybe that 7's down to 5.5, maybe 6. But if you only spend 30 seconds mixing it, you're way ahead of the game. So now what I'm going to do is take my molds. I'm going to come in over the top, and I'm just going to pour these in. Let them drizzle down the side a little bit here till I get to the thickness I want.
Don't you normally crease your cup?
Well, you can. Color pours, I will.
Okay. I apologize.
That's okay. You can crease the spout in your cup if you're having a hard time pouring them in them tubes.
I always have a hard time pouring them into the tubes.
I really don't, but I do it all the time. I mean, when I make opal blanks, it's nothing to cast 500 tubes
Right.
in a weekend. So you get used to it. You get good at it. So I've left a little bit in the cup. That way I'll know when this is hard enough that we can open it. So, all right. So now you get them in there, and there's going to be bubbles. You can see the bubbles, but you can also see bubbles are rising up. So that's a good thing. The only way you're going to get rid of those bubbles is if you put it under pressure. Urethane resin, aluminite, has to go under pressure because as it cures, it's going to create gases, and it's part of its curing process. It's going to create some of its own bubbles, and you're never going to get them all out. So you have to use pressure. Somebody once asked, can I use a vacuum? You can, but you're wasting your time. You can pull the bubbles out, but the problem is, as it cures and creates its own, it's going to have more in it. So vacuum is only for stabilizing. Pressure is for casting. Pressure will compress the air so that you can't see it.
Myra asks, does your 36 tube rack fit in a 2.5 gallon pressure pot?
Yes. It fits. So I have 4 or 5 of these converted paint pots, and I think they're the most narrow, aren't they, Dawn? Are these the most narrow? And they fit in there just fine. So basically, you just set it in there, come back over the top. I hand tighten all of this. I don't get crazy with it. And I've been using this tank, I think, for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years now. It gets a lot of use. I will say, if you're having problems with your tank, replace it. Don't risk it.
Well, I love the fact that you tighten them up across from each other.
Yes. So
As opposed to starting and going all the way around.
I treat them like lug nuts. You always want to work across. So I do 2 at a time, opposite, because that way it pulls the lid down together. These are metal threads on metal threads. If you don't do that and all of a sudden your lid starts to kick up a little bit, now you're putting tension on these threads, and it's real easy for the metal threads to be sheared off. So I always work across from itself. And now I shut the tank, right? This is open. This is closed. I want to apply my air hose with the tank completely shut off. So when I put this on, air's not going in. If air could go in all of a sudden, I don't have any control over how fast that air goes in. And what can happen in some molds, you'll blow resin right out of the mold. So if you apply your air hose to the top and then slowly open it, I never open it all the way. I open it maybe half at most. But what I'm doing is I'm adding air. I'm watching this gauge because this is the most important part. That needle has to move. If that needle's not moving, tap it to see if it's stuck. If it still doesn't move, don't use the tank because you have no control over how much pressure you put. These all have a safe pressure recommendation. This one is 60 pounds, so I'm not going to go over 50. 50 is usually where I cast most everything. Some are rated for 80. You'll know when you buy the tank, it'll tell you. So I get to 50. I close the valve. I remove the air hose. Now, there's no way that I can overinflate this by accident if the hose isn't on it. So I shut the valve, I basically set it aside, and I walk away. If I'm casting more than one tank at a time, so now that this one's done, if I were going to move to another tank, what I might do is look at my watch and say, all right, an hour and a half from now, and write that time on the lid with a marker. You can wipe it off with acetone later, but I will mark that on the lid and set it over here so I don't accidentally open the wrong tank at the wrong time.
I tell Alexa what to do.
Yeah.
I say, Alexa, set a pot A timer for 30 minutes.
And that's it.
It'll keep it for it.
I walk away
Set
from
for
it.
Whatever it is.
So Sarah asked, and we didn't get to it the first time. Sorry about that, Sarah. She said, why can't you use wax cups to mix? She's mixed clear slow all the time with small pores.
So the problem is, as your resins mix, it's going to get warm, and you don't want to melt the wax from the inside of the cup into your resin, and you don't want the cup to break apart as you're mixing it. So it's kind of a twofold issue.
And if you do a lot like color casts, where you're doing color casts and you're waiting for that resin to get warm, with clear casts, you're pretty much okay. But with a color cast, when it's getting warm and you're getting to that 95 to 100 before you're going to do your mixing to keep your color separation, that's where you have an issue.
Absolutely.
So Patrick also says, shouldn't there be a blow-off valve
Or a pressure release valve.
So they come with them. This is a converted tank. The tanks that you buy with that are already set up, the pressure pots complete, will have the blow-off valves. So if you overinflate them, they'll kick out. I don't use my compressor to regulate anything, so I don't worry about it because I'm watching that gauge and I know that everything is where it needs to be. And I always stay 10 pounds under the maximum pressure. And I disconnect the air hose, and I don't worry about it.
Disconnecting the air hose is the key.
The reason I don't is I had them when I first started out, and I had a few valves go bad on me. And as I walked away, I came back, and 18 hours later found the tank empty, and all my blanks had ruined. And after the second time of that happening on a different tank, it wasn't even the same safety pressure valve, I said, I'm just taking them off. So keep it safe. If you feel comfortable with it on there, by all means, leave it on there. Don't take them off because I said to. I'm just doing what works for me. And again, I don't overinflate, and I don't leave the air hose on the tank. I don't let the air compressor regulate the poundage pressure. I close the valve, disconnect it, and it is what it is. So I don't know how far we're going to get along, and there were some questions about these plugs, and I just wanted to show you what's going to happen when you open this tank. So
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're
Bunch of
fine.
junk in your way here.
So this is how it's going to come out of the pressure pot. All right. Our cast blank is in our tube. The tube acts as the mold, and you're going to turn this off on the lathe. So basically everything is in there. The only problem I see right now, so I'm going to grab a different one, is I poured over the top of this plug. So I usually skim off the top with the bandsaw and pop it out. So I've got a feather blank that didn't turn out. And so I use these just for these kind of demos to demold. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by pulling the spring out. That's completely reusable. And then I'm going to take a razor blade and I'm going to come in here where the blank and the base meet. And I'm going to score that with the razor blade. All I want to do is cut through the plastic sleeve that I used as a mold. I'm not going to cut to separate everything, but I just want to make sure that I can pop these apart. Then I'm going to take channel locks. And I'm going to grab the base. I want to make sure I stay in camera view here. I'll grab the base, and I'm just going to pop these apart. So now, this is polyester Silmar 41, so it's a little messier. Alumilite actually comes off much cleaner. So now, my base is ready for reuse. I'm going to throw that aside for reuse. And now I'm going to come in here with my pliers. I'll come here with my pliers and break off these excess pieces. And I'm going to come in here with these extra long needle nose pliers and pop this out. And now that silicone plug is ready to be reused. And it's not uncommon for me to use these plugs 30 or 40 times in a cast, but I get pretty aggressive with using them and demolding them. So that's how I would demold things. Sometimes I tear them because I'm just ripping them apart, but I'll have a couple thousand on hand so I can do that. The only other thing I would add is if you're going to use epoxy in this system, get yourself some tape and wrap tape around the bottom of that seam, because epoxy takes so much longer to cure. I've had epoxy seep out and then stick to the bottom of the rack. And the racks will clean real easy. Nothing, the resins don't adhere to it. They pop right off. So that one rack will last a lifetime. But if you don't have to clean it, you know, it's much better. So I always wrap tape on it if I'm going to use epoxy. Any questions? Let's see.
Still do playing cards.
I do the same as you. Okay.
We should have a Q&A. Do we do playing cards or do we do Q&A?
I tell you what, I can go through a playing card real quick.
Okay, why don't we do that?
All right. So
Thank you.
playing cards are the same as labels. The only difference is you've got to get the playing card to a usable state. Because obviously the playing card, you're going to get it. It's vinyl. Don't use paper. There's paper ones out there. I thought I threw one in here somewhere. Paper don't peel. So what you need to do is you need to get your card to a usable state. So there's 3 layers in a standard playing card. And so you need to delaminate the front, the back, and remove the rigid center. So here's what I start out doing. I take a hard surface and I just pinch the card and I just dent the heck out of the corner. Everything that my grandfather told me never do when he played cards with me. Don't bend the cards. So I roll this around on my fingers a little bit till I start to see them separate. Anyone that's played a lot of cards has probably seen where cards start to fall apart.
Put it under here when you get enough that you can see what you're doing.
Yeah, let me just peel it back
I
a hair.
understand.
There we go. So here's what you have to do. You've got to bend that corner back so that you get, let me pull this one back here. So you get 3 pieces. There you go. So this is the inside of the card. This piece sticking down is the, oh, well, sorry, this is the face. That's the inside. And then out here is the back. So this is how we pull these apart. Maybe I can do it here.
You can try.
So it can be tricky. I often try to save both sides, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. So what I like to do is first I'll come in here and I'll bend this back. So now what I'm going to do is lay this flat and put my finger on the top of it. And I'm going to keep moving my finger in on this edge as I peel it and just work myself up the card. And now we've got the piece we're going to use. That's the back. Magicians do this because then they'll glue different cards together so that they can make you think that they've done something funny. But this is basically the usable state that we want. Now we have a couple options. We have that piece that we marked an S on, right? We can come in here and lay it. Well, you can see through the paper to kind of see where you're at. Other options would be take your tube, lay your card on it, and now match the ends. Line this edge up, front and back, and then crease it forward and backwards. So now that we've done that, we've got a bend, and now we know we're going to cut on this line, and we're going to come over here about 1/8 of an inch and cut beyond it. When you cut beyond that side, that's the side you stick on first, and your overlap is the one that's on the bend. That way, this will match up like a mirror, and it'll be kind of it'll be seamed, but it won't look as noticeable, right? It'll look like it's more of a mirror image, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that round circle will match back up on itself perfectly.
The other thing I would recommend, paint your brass tubes. Anytime I glue a card blank, I'm going to paint my brass tubes, and I spray paint them white. I like a matte white finish because it doesn't seem to fall off or flake off the tube as easily. If you use brass and you glue this on, once you cast that, you might see a shine through it from the brass, but you're not going to see anything on a white tube. So the next thing is, some guys use spray adhesive. Some guys use Elmer's paste. I use just a generic stick glue. I just put a stick glue edge on that, roll it on, and I have to let these dry overnight. I'll give it a good maybe 12 hours of drying time, and then I'll use a razor blade to cut my edges, and they're ready to cast. But use epoxy for your cards. I've used all the resins out there that I have, and I get the best results with epoxy. Let's see, anything else up there?
Where do you get your supplies like playing cards, opal paper?
When it comes to the playing cards, you can find them anywhere. There's a place on Huh?
Doesn't eBay have a bunch of them
Oh, eBay, there's Cardwell, there's playingcards.com, Walgreens. I mean, all the pharmacies
You
have
just want to not use the cheap ones.
Yeah, don't use paperback. You want to make sure that they're vinyl. And I will tell you, it's disappointing sometimes when you look at the back of a deck and it's got a picture on it, and then you take it home and open it up, and the backs of the cards look nothing like the picture on the box. Very disappointing. I've got several like that. But
is it okay to interrupt?
Yeah.
I'll also warn that when you look at them, there will be ones that look really great, but the image is then too big.
yes,
And then when you want to wrap it around a 27/64, that image is too big. So patterns like the ones that you have there will typically work great. Ones that have words on the back or something like that will not necessarily match off as well.
right. So you can have fun with the standard playing card, and like Mark was talking about earlier, you can kind of match them up to the platings on your component sets to come up with something that's different. Sometimes I choose the plating that I like, and then I find a card that'll work with it. And in this case, I just like the darkness of all of it. It doesn't always have to be the backs, or if it is the backs, you can segment them, so to speak. And this one, I took a white card and placed it down first, and then I cut strips from a red card and overlapped them so that I got red and white stripes. And up here, I cut stars on the blue and put white behind it. So you can have a lot of fun just playing with different cards. Sometimes the backs have patterns on them, like the flowers. So, this was fun to do, just putting a little flower around the pen.
John, before they scroll, let me give you a couple quick questions before they scroll too quick.
Yeah.
For stamps or other thinner documents, certificates and such, while the white paint still works to offset the darkening, or should there be an additional paper layer added?
It really all depends on what you're casting. When it comes down to paints, you have to make sure that it's compatible with your resin if you're gonna pour over the top of it. So if you're using a paint as the background, you're gonna want to make sure it's a high temperature paint, an engine paint, a grill paint, something that's going to withstand the temperatures of the curing resin. If not, your paint's going to shrivel up and shrink and possibly fall off the tube. As far as dollar bills, I have a dollar bill collage that I created that is a label cast, but I also use real money when I bought shreds of it and then ironed it all out and glued it all back in place and set it. So it's one of those things that just time.
I'm just trying to keep you where you're at.
Which kit was that? I'm not sure which, if you're looking at this one, this is a junior gent. If you're looking at that, I believe that's the magnetic. Is that the graduate or is that
Yeah,
the
that's the
Vertex?
graduate.
All right, that's the graduate. And then this one, I believe, is what, the two-tone black
Yes.
chrome. So, what do we got here?
In their paper, should you coat them with something first?
So you can. So when you're talking about playing cards, there's vinyl primers and things you can spray over them as well. If you're concerned about a seam, you can always brush a little bit of clear nail polish over that to help. But I found that the epoxy resins, they just seem to work real well with them. So
Opal paper.
I can't really go into that because that's one of the things that I don't share everything. Feathers and opal papers are really two of the things that I can't get into. But they are for sale. Not the paper, but the blanks are for sale here. Let's see. Have you ever cast
Tarot cards.
tarot card? I haven't found one with an image small enough. I've looked for them. And if that's something to try, if you find them, run with it. I've done all the other cards, different types of sports cards and Pokemon cards and all that kind of stuff. But I've never found tarot cards that had an image small enough that you would see on the tube.
If it's okay to talk, I mean,
Let's let Dean in long enough to get the last giveaway in. And
Yes.
then we can.
let me just tell you one last one that I did that came out great when you talk about cards. So one of the guys in our club used to play baseball for the Chicago Cubs.
Yep.
I found his baseball card on Google, matched up his baseball card, then did a label cast, just like we did earlier when we were doing label cast.
Mhm.
And so he got his baseball card, and it made it look like it was really his baseball card on the tube. It's a great gift idea.
Okay, we'll let you in, Dean. How's that for a deal?
Okay, Dean's here. Again, a reminder, the sale goes till midnight tonight. A lot of the stuff you saw, John's casting kit, the tubes, the paper, all of that's on sale. Go to the sales for the weekly sales, but it's only good till midnight. And then for our next giveaway, type the word cards into chat. And while that's going on, we can go back to the crew. Q&A.
Still,
Good.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, table casting is a big thing. It's pretty popular.
Do some Q&A while
Okay.
you're typing.
All right. So let's see. Everybody seems to, hopefully they got something from this they can use. Somebody mentioned, yeah, take scans of the cards. And I guess it all depends on what your intent is. If you intend to sell them, I'd be very cautious about making scans of somebody else's artwork. But if you're just going to make them for yourself,
It
then
goes right back to the copyright.
yeah,
order.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, and again, playing cards, it's kind of like watch faces or anything else. There's so many different varieties that you can really appeal to all those interest groups out there. And some of the cards are big money. So the nice thing is, you know, it's a full deck. So you always have at least 52 of them that you can mess a couple up and still get a couple of good pens.
Well, and just as a practical experience when you're first starting, face cards, Jack, King, Queen, Ace, I
Yep.
try to make sure I at least get the face of it.
Yep.
The 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I really don't care about those, so I will put those on, and I will be more conscious of trying to get the backs of those.
Well, and that's what I've done with this one.
Right.
And so I've cut around the hands to try to overlap it. And you'll notice as you start bending these around tubes, sometimes, especially using the faces of the cards, you have to be a little creative about what you cut and how you cut around them to get everything to lie flat. So it can be challenging, but it can also be pretty rewarding when it works out. So.
All right, one more minute. We got about 50 entries.
I
in the
was
draw, so
suggesting
let's get
go
some
like
more.
the live stream as quick as you type the cards. Thank you. Okay, talking about a larger pattern on a playing card.
I'm sorry, where's that? Talk about a larger pattern on the plate. Yeah, so, you know, if they're larger patterns, it's hard to get them to wrap around the tube and be visible. I like the bicycle playing cards because they just seem to fit on there nicely and you can see them. But if it's a pattern that's maybe a large face, then you're going to want to put it on a larger tube pen. You're going to have to look at the patterns that you have and kind of match them up with the size of the tubes. But if it's just the standard bicycle and then, you know, all the characters on them, they all work just fine.
As a copier guy, I'll tell you, you could put them on a copier and change the size of it if you had an image that's too big and you wanted to bring it down, as Mark has already shown. So yeah, you could use the concept of a playing card, but at the same time make it work for what you're trying to do.
And print it on a weatherproof label
For a gift.
for a gift or
For a gift.
you know, yourself or whatever. But
That's
yeah,
right.
you just have to be real careful about what you sell.
Yep.
What do you use to glue snakes on the tubes with? So I'll use CA glue to glue the snakes down, and then I let them sit for 2 or 3 days to let the glue cure and degas, and then put them in the resin. Snakes they're finicky. That's something you'll spend 4 or 5 days with your snakes, because first you're going to get them, you're going to wash them, you're going to clean them, then you're going to rinse them, get all the soaps and oils out of them. Then you got to tack them down and let them dry. and then you're going to cut them to size. Then you're going to scrape the scales off. Then you're going to glue them to the spray paint the tubes. You're going to glue the tubes then to the snakes. Then you're going to let them sit for 2 days. Then you're going to wipe them back down with alcohol to clean them. Then you're going to tube them up. I mean, it's a lengthy process. And I'll be honest with you, snakes are getting expensive. I used to buy rattlesnakes all day long in the $30 range, and now they've doubled. So it's hard to, if you're making them for yourself and having fun doing it, great, but it's hard to profit from snakes anymore because it's one of those things that usually it has a very small percentage in success
On
with
the
casting.
pattern, you have to have a pattern that fits on a pen.
It needs
And
to be a small, I don't use a snake if it's over 3 foot, because then the pattern's too big, unless you're putting them on a really big,
Mike Doherty.
Mike Doherty is the second winner. Congrats, Mike. How do I take the scales off? I take a popsicle stick like this, and I just scrape across them. And that way it's not too aggressive. All you want to do is really remove the clear scale covers. The scales, it's just a clear skin type cover that goes over them. And if you don't remove them, they'll come off in your resin and be floating around. And then you see all this in between the outer edge of the resin and the snake skin. So
Those covers get everywhere.
they are staticky cling, aren't they? Next thing you know, you've got them sticking to you, and snakes aren't fun. And like I said, when people make them and they're expensive, it's because there's extensive work involved and a really high failure rate.
Remember, when you're doing resin casting and then you turn it into a pen, the resin acts as a magnifier.
Yep.
So if you have anything in there, like a scale or two that got loose, I guarantee you're going to see it. And so you really run into difficulties with these things having to be, quote, perfect, unquote, because everything in there is magnified. It's a beautiful thing when you get a snake that's done perfectly and you can see it and it looks great. But man, it ain't necessarily easy.
So, Sarah, you're talking about sheds, and that's a little different because shed is actually the outer skin itself, the outer layer of skin, and there's really no color involved in a shed. You can use that just fine. They're very delicate, but what we were speaking of earlier was actually the skin of a snake. So if a snake, you find a dead snake and then you skin it and then you scrape it and then you dry it. And so it's actually, unfortunately, the snake has passed when we use the skins like that. And you can buy them all day long on the internet, but they're pretty expensive.
You also got to be careful if they're tanned, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. And it really, I know guys that like them tanned. I like them air dried, but there are copperhead skins, they're expensive today now too, but they're a little easier to work with because they don't have such a raised scale like some of the prairie rattlesnakes or the diamondbacks.
If there's anything they want to see.
So
As we're coming to a quick close, a couple of things I want to point out. If you want to see John or myself in person and talk a little bit about any of this kind of stuff, John's doing 2 demos and I'm doing a couple demos at the AAW symposium in Minneapolis. You can just Google AAW symposium. It's the American Association of Woodturners. One of the things that I also want to point out is please send an email to sales@exoticblanks.com for topics. We're always looking for a kind of topic that you want to do. John, myself, and Ed, we kind of split these up and we try to rotate who's going to be doing it. But we're always looking for topics and things that people want us to talk about. So please send us an email at sales@exoticblanks.com and we will get it. And yeah, Dean put it on the side, the AAW symposium. If you want to come up, talk to John or myself there. And Exotic Blanks will be one of our favorite partners and vendors at that event up there also. So if you ever want to really see Dawn in person, which she'll never let you see, the best way to come out and see Dawn in person is come out to one of the symposiums. So we've got a few minutes for any more final questions or comments on the side. We're trying to be respectful of everybody's time. Please shoot any text messages or anything you got over there.
And it looks like Myra's going to be doing snakeskins.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining. We appreciate all the time you guys take out to stop in, and We love the questions because I don't remember everything. So it's great when you ask questions so that I can clarify things for you. So, and as Dean says, make sure everybody likes and subscribes. It's important to subscribe. That way you guys know when new stuff comes out if you can't make it.
And that's an important thing to know right now because we're not real sure what Thursday we're going to pick. Both John and Mark have a commitment on the third Wednesday every month. And so it's very likely that we will change to the fourth Thursday. At any rate, it's important to keep your subscribe on so that you know when this is going to happen. Obviously, I send out an email. Obviously, we will continue to do that. But just if you enjoy it, we want to have you here. We're not trying to be hard to find. But at the same time, you got two very important people that you're working with, and they're constantly on one or another turning group trying to show them how to do it better and bigger. So we try to handle their schedules as well. Once again, thanks for coming. And if there's any further questions or comments, we'll leave it open for a couple of minutes yet. We ran long, but I don't think anybody minded. We didn't lose very many people. So
No, and it looks like Greg Kozad wants us to go to that fourth Thursday. So thank you. Thank you for that one.
Yep, appreciate it.
Oh, you know what? There's a question on there. What items are on sale? Do you want to make a quick pitch for that one?
What items are on sale? Dawn?
We have the Illuminate resin on sale. Illuminate slow.
The Illuminate resin is one of the things, and I think Dean put a list of the things that on the side comments.
Yeah, label
So
paper, the rolling jig.
rolling jigs are there, and the paper is there, and all kinds of things that you will need to get started on this. John's casting system. Thank you.
I just realized we didn't open this. So the resin that we had in the spare cup has hardened enough, so we're going to open this up.
See, it does hold its pressure. You really don't have to put it.
You know what's really good is while this is cured, I'm usually on the lathe doing stuff, so I've got sawdust and resin all over me, kind of like what's floating down from the lights. And so I'll usually lean over that and blow all the shavings off my face and shirt before I open it. It's dual purpose.
So while you're doing that, a couple quick questions on there. Were we able to get replays of these recordings now? Yes, they're going to be out on YouTube. They'll be out probably momentarily right after it. So it'll be out there. I also want to do, this is not a commercial, but I also want to say that if you go on YouTube, 10 Minutes to Better Pen Making, which is my YouTube channel, my whole demo with the whole step-by-step of how I do all the Photoshop and everything else is out there. John's got his new channel called John Underhill.
Yeah, Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions.
John Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions. And Ed and Exotic Blanks has their own YouTube channel. So we're trying to keep all this stuff out and trying to get you as much information as we can.
Yeah. So there we go. And our blanks ready to demold. And
Do you want to throw one under here?
Yeah, throw one under there to show them there ain't no
car.
bubbles.
it's really carded.
Oh, that one looks great.
Yeah.
God, I wish I had that car.
Push the button.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So there's the car one.
And
That's a little better. You can see it doesn't reflect as much. You can see there's no bubbles at all in any of these.
yeah. You'll get an occasional along the bottom where it'll seep out from underneath the tube,
Yep.
but it's always in a place that you're going to cut it off anyhow. So it always seems to work.
Remember, when you look at them, if they are not dead center, don't worry about that. I have a video on how to turn it. If it's not dead center, I can't begin to tell you how many people complain about that. And at the same time, if you're questioning it, just take Sierra bushings and put it into it. If there's room on the bushing, there's room to turn it. So
Absolutely.
that's all it takes.
So extra tubes for casting system. Yes, you can get those through Exotic Blanks. What are those YouTube channels again? My channel, if you're interested in my channel, it's 10 Minutes to Better Pen Making.
Maybe Dean can link it.
Yeah, if Dean can put these up there. 10 Minutes to Better Pen Making. John's is
Yeah. Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions.
Underhill Creations and Casting Solutions. And
You're on exotics.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
and Ed's and Don's are Exotic Blanks.
Exoticblanks.com. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you've got that.
YouTube.
10 minutes. If you just Google 10 minutes to better, sorry, YouTube 10 minutes to better pen making, if you put my name out there too, I've got another whole presentation that I did in Indiana a couple years ago, and it's about 2 hours long. So thank you, Dean. Are those tubes reusable?
So no, the only thing in the system is the clear casting tubes that you use aren't reusable, because you turn them off the blank as you turn them down. So,
But the plugs are.
but the plugs,
The
the base,
wire
the wire,
is- everything else is-
everything except for the clear plastic sleeve.
David Lang says hi, Don.
Someone says I don't cast a lot, but I do like John's blanks.
I appreciate that.
That's probably a less expensive way to get to your desired result, I'll tell you.
So I have a lot of people tell me that. I have people that come to me and say, I cast, I get it, but I don't have the time to do that. So I'll just buy them from you, because at least that way I know I'm getting something that turned out. And to my response, I always say,
He's making fun of the conversations I have in the car on the way up.
No,
Yes, I can cast. I do my own casting, but there's just some of the stuff that he does is phenomenal, and I ask him to do it. I am sorry.
so you have to worry about inventory for your
just
shows,
having some-
and I just cast. I mean, I always say I have the easy part. I just pour resin over it. I don't have to turn it and put it together and make sure it shines, and I just pour resin over it. So it's all good.
So, and if you have any other questions, I mean, you can always,
Email us.
email sales at Exotic Blanks, even if it's a question directed to me or directed to John, right? You don't have a big problem with that. I know Don forwards questions to me and to John all the time. So if you have any questions for either one of us or all three of us, send it to sales@exoticblanks.com. Right, Don? You don't mind sending it. And they'll forward it on. And most of the time, if you've got my business card from any show, my phone number is on there. You can, we were just talking about it now that we're getting, that John gets text messages too. If you're going to do anything through text to me, all that I ask is please let me know where we met or where we found out, because I do get some really weird spam texts on there too.
That's usually when I call him. He won't answer. He thinks it's spam. So be like, oh, heck no.
I'm just thinking now I don't have to cast this. I got one for me.
Oh, it's yours?
I like that car.
Okay.
Anything else, guys? Team? So plan on us sending you out an email for next month. We're still looking for the topics. I'm going to dwell on it one last time. If you get a chance, please send us any emails at sales@Exotic Blanks with topics that you'd like to see us explore. And if it's not something that's in our forte, we do have a lot of people that we can contact. As you know, with the MPG and things like that, there's a lot of people that we can contact and come out here and do a demo for us.
And Dean has said good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Once Dean says good night, we're all saying good night.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate your help as usual.
Congrats to the winners.
Bye now. I guess we're off.